you got to work your butt off. If you think that you're gonna go and accomplish something really special and be the best in anything in the world, and you think you can do it without working, you make a big mistake. Because no matter what I did, if it was in bodybuilding or in acting or if it is in the political arena, it always took a lot of work. And you got to put out, and you got to, sometimes make a lot of sacrifices. Notice, if you're not willing to work hard, forget about it. So there's another rule that is very important.
I'll never forget a recent experience. Doing my business on Wall Street, getting on the train to come back to Midtown, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Normally, there's a lull. This train should be empty. But on this day, the train was full of people, all in business suits. A guy recognizes me, comes over and says, "Hey, are you Chris Gardner?" We started talking. Turns out I'm in a car with the first wave of the 55,000 people who had just been laid off by Citibank. And I noticed something. Everyone's holding a box. You've seen the boxes, you've seen them on television. They've got their house plant, their coffee mug, the pictures of their kids. And they're all going home. They're all going home to tell their wife, their husband, their children, and the landlord they don't have a job. I began to share with this young guy that, well, you know what? Yeah, you lost your job, but you haven't lost your skills, your talent, or your expertise. What we've got to do now is create opportunities where the skill, talent, and expertise can be transferable. Creating an opportunity and looking for a job are two different things. This could be prime time for pushing your button, rather, finding your button. What do I mean by that? Prime time to find that one thing that you love to do so much, you would get up in the morning and do it free. Prime time to find that one thing that the sun cannot come up soon enough in the morning because you want to go do your thing. This could be that time in your life.
Every single person, when they're in their teens, in their early 20s, they care so much about other people and how they're perceived and what impression they make. And I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to be good at everything and be a good student and be prettier and skinnier and successful and all these things. And I cared about what people said about me and how they felt about me. And as I get older, I just realized that other people won't make me happy. It has to be from within me, and I need to keep doing whatever makes me happy. And whoever responds to that, great. Whoever doesn't respond to that, it's fine too. Mm-hmm. But the less I care about other people's opinions, the better I feel about myself, and the more I do things that make me happy.
I don't make notes. I react very instinctively to everything. I'm a great believer in traveling a great deal. I don't believe in meetings. More than 2 people in a meeting is too many. Really, it's true. Do you know about stand-ups? No, okay. So in Silicon Valley now, when you have a meeting, everybody stands in a circle like they're meditating. And that's how, maybe I should try that. I think the more you go out, the more you see, the more you experience life, the more you bring back to your day job. So as I was trying to say in my remarks, I think the problem about big corporations is you get a lot of people my age trying to hold on to their jobs and clinging on to their pensions and their retirement, and they're not experiencing new things, and they don't like change and they don't like disruption, so either they don't make a decision or they say no, and as a result they stagnate. So it's terribly important to bring people in from the outside and not to remain too insular, and also to hire as many young, bright people like all of you as you can, just to teach you how to think about things completely differently.
You're gonna play big, say big. Big. You're gonna play huge, say huge. Huge. You're gonna play ginormous, say ginormous. But first, take baby steps. You're gonna eat the elephant, but take one small bite first, chew it good. Right? We want so much so fast. My grandmother says baby, she starts every sentence with baby. I'm sure it's because she cannot remember all of our names. She said, baby, the best things you'll ever have from grandma will never come from the microwave. They always come from the oven. And I was like, I think somehow she's trying to give me a lesson here. And I realized that the best things that you're gonna create are gonna take time. Build it on cement, not sinking sand. You're gonna get tons and tons and tons of tools here. And you're gonna wanna fast forward. But when you fast forward, you build it on plexiglass, you build it on styrofoam, you build it on wood, you wanna build it on cement. Your dream is important enough to outlive you. Yes, yes? And so I realized that you can't Google download resiliency. You can't Google download tenacity. You can't Google download forgiveness. They're some of the best qualities and characteristics that's gonna take you a long way that you need to invest time in and energy in and intention in. You don't just get patience. I want patience, I'm waiting for patience. Somebody's gonna piss you off tomorrow. And now you get to test if you have patience. I realized that as I wanted to develop me, I had to be willing to climb, and I wanted to get to the top, and there's no elevator to the top. I gotta do my squats. I gotta work on my quads and my hamstrings and my calves, because I gotta climb to the top. We gotta climb.
You want to be great, like you want to be good. And you sort of set these funny expectations for yourself, you know? One of the funniest things that Fogerty ever said to me, he was like, yeah, I was learning to play the drums, but I realized that I would never be as good as John Bonham from Led Zeppelin, so I stopped. And I'm like, who is as good as John? But nobody. Like, what the, how could you do that? So, like, there should be no right or wrong, you know? You should just be cool with what you do and how you sound. Like, it's one of the things that I have a problem with, like a lot of those song contest shows on TV. Not only because, you know, whatever, it's corporate cheese or whatever, but I have a problem with, like, if my kid walked up on stage and sang her heart out as best as she could, and Jennifer Lopez said, like, no, sorry, that's not good enough, I'd be like, I would be so pissed, you know? Because that's not how it works. You know, you should go to a yard sale and buy a shitty old guitar and then go find a friend and get into your garage and just suck. That'd be awful. And then write some songs and become the biggest band in the world, you know? Because that's how it works. I mean, it works other ways too, I'm sure. But I mean, as a young musician, you know, first of all, you're not gonna make a living doing it. Like, accept that, realize that. Because then if you do, you're stoked. The reward of playing music should be the reward of playing music. Like, that's what you kind of get. Like, when I was a little kid, or when I was playing punk rock music as a teenager, like, there was never any career opportunity because we played punk rock music. Nobody wanted to buy that, but we loved to do it. It was so much fun. And like, if you start from a place like that you just love to create and you just love to play music and you can't stop thinking about it and you do it every day and you do it by yourself or you do it with your friends and that's enough for you to survive the rest of your life, that's great. And then, once you start getting good, you start playing for people. And once you start playing for people, if you're good, then those people will tell other people, that girl's really good. So then all of a sudden, you're playing to all these different people, and that, to me, is the most important thing. When it's you on stage, and people are seeing, when people see another person doing that, it's really inspiring. Like, it's cool to see a human being jamming. That's great.
A lot of so-called unhappiness is also a childish way of trying to change things by being as unhappy as you can about them. And the underlying unconscious or semi-conscious assumption is, if I'm really unhappy, somebody, perhaps God, is going to do something about it, or I'm going to prove him wrong I'm going to show him how dreadful it is, and then finally, this is an unconscious assumption behind the unhappiness, because you believe, if you're habitually and frequently unhappy, you believe that it has a purpose. It's an underlying assumption. Perhaps you wouldn't verbalize it in that way, but you believe that it works for you. Of course it doesn't, but things are going to change, but just need to be really unhappy, so that God finally, even if you don't believe in God, this can still be the mechanism, the underlying unconscious assumption behind it. It's something is going to happen. And of course the opposite is true, because the more unhappy you are with something, the more you are stuck in the situation.
My first passion before food was football. But I was always a good eater, great lover of food, and I grew up partly in Scotland, partly down south. So we had that sort of token of appreciation of home-cooked food. Then I was very lucky to get on a foundation course, spending the last year of my school at a foundation course, studying maths, English 2.5 days a week, and then learning to cook for 2.5 days a week, and it was a sort of new experiment. Now we had trouble with buying my first set of whites and chef knives, and we depended on the Banbury round table to come up with something like £85, £90 that Mum and Dad didn't have to get my first set of whites. So I still remember that day now, and how ecstatic and happy I was when I got given my first set of whites, my knives, and all of a sudden I wanted to go on that mission. Football was a sort of huge burning ambition, and I was trying to decide. Yeah, I had a horrific injury where I smashed my cartilage, and then all of a sudden, what do? You sit there and get bitter. But I had this little burning desire of this sort of chef, this ambition, and then I sort of channeled that frustration from football into cooking in a way that I just wanted to learn. The foundation course was huge. Did a Sitting Guild 706. I was a mature part-time student, and Mum and Dad didn't have the money to send me to college full-time. So it was hard, but what I did do is take a job in the industry. I worked 6 days a week and went to college 1 day a week. So then everything started becoming clearer. Got my qualifications, the basic, and then went to London. And that's where it really just took off.
Why do you prioritize sleep so highly? Just curious of what makes you so committed to that and the science behind it. Thank you for all you do. I find that I'm slower when I'm fatigued. So I find myself drifting. I have more symptoms of what we'll call ADD. So that my attention just drifts. And then I find I'll read a sentence or whatever and be like, God, I have to reread the sentence like 10 times. So that was just going, whoa. I'm not as efficient as I could be. And then the other is I find it a unique form of misery. There is an additional ring of hell that is saved just for people who are fatigued. I hate it so much. So it's misery, and I don't understand people that live a life that is miserable. I just don't get it. And then on top of that, I think you actually accomplish less if you're fatigued. So you're putting more hours, but you're actually getting less done per hour. So if being fatigued puts you at like 0.6 of what your output could be, and then being just like incredibly well rested, prioritizing that puts you at, it's, I guess mathematically I should be saying just 1, then like you have to make up 40% of the number of hours in waking up early just to break even, and then you put misery on top of that. So that's my N of 1 experience, is that I am so deadly efficient when I'm rested that I just get more done. So comparing those two side by side, I actually accomplish more.
Yeah, I believe in manifestation. I believe in, putting a rocket of desire out into the universe, and you get it when you believe it. You get it when you believe you have it. And that's the key, is like people still, they sit around going, when's it gonna come, when's it gonna come, when's it gonna come, when's it gonna come? And that's the wrong way. You're facing the wrong way, you're facing away from it. You have to go, it's here, it's here, it's here.
Whether it's a world champion boxer, a basketball player, a track star, a horse, even animals, I find out that this Mark Spitz, for an example, he's a world champion. But what made him the world champion was that he seemed to, at the right time when the pressure's down, at the last few yards, he can get that lead, or he's got enough left to make it. I fought Ken Norton, my last fight. The fight was even up until the last round, but I had something that he didn't have, although I'm much older. And that was the last-minute kick.
What's that last-minute kick? Is that something?
Just the stamina, the strength,
it's more than training.
The mental capacity, to realize what's involved and how important it is to make your body do something that's really too hard to do. Your mind makes you do it. Mark Spitz, this Olympic track star I was mentioning, he wasn't that much greater than all the people in the world, but sometimes he won by just that much. And a champion is just one who can come out at the last minute and close the show. As I say, the star closes the show. A 14, 15 round fight, and it's even, and usually this champion, you can depend on him to come through at the last few seconds and find some energy from somewhere.
Is it discipline? Or
not only that, it's mental and physical. His body's in physical shape to do it, plus mentally too. He's got himself in condition where both fellas may be, sometimes the will can outdo the skill. And sometimes a fella's will is stronger than the man who's actually better physically, and the determination and weakens the other man just to see him so determined.
Every single human being has value, and my value is not determined on how I look or what job I have, or where I'm from, where I was born, how much money, all that stuff is nothing. So many teenagers, tease each other for how we look, and I tell the teenagers, do you think that I'm cool enough to be your friend? They're like, yeah, of course. I said, but I have no arms, no legs. And they said, doesn't matter. I said, really? So it doesn't matter that I have no arms, no legs? I said, no, it doesn't matter. I said, then actually, if it doesn't matter, then why do we kill each other with our words if it actually doesn't matter? Why do we look ourselves in the mirror and see ugly instead of valuable? I want to ask you today, what are you looking for? If I gave you $1 billion, would you be happy? If you gave me $1 billion, I'd be very happy. But then if my mum dies tonight, am I happy? No. With all the money in the world, I'll never be happy. Why? Because money is something that cannot heal the soul.
The cookie jar is something I invented. As you all know, your mom has a cookie jar, and sometimes you might have an Oreo, sometimes you might have a Chips Ahoy, sometimes you might have an oatmeal raisin cookie. You never know. It's just in there. My cookie jar has every single failure and success of my life, something I overcame. So what happens in time of life when you're stressed out and things get bad, even the hardest guy in the world, me, everybody thinks, and I think I'm the hardest guy in the world. You gotta believe that. You gotta believe you are something. I will, in my mind, reach into my cookie jar, and sometimes you forget how hard you are in times of need. Because you're stressed, but you forget, I'm a Navy SEAL, I'm a Ranger, I'm this and that, but you forget all that because your life sucks. I calm down, take that 1 second, get control of my life, reach in the cookie jar. Well, you got called nigger your whole life, and you're now the only person in history to do this, this, and this. Put it back in the cookie jar, reset my mind. You have to remind yourself of how badass you really are in times of need. That's the cookie jar.
I was a very headstrong young person, and by 1983 or 4, had started my own publishing company to publish my own books, realizing that no one else will publish me, and I was right about that. And so my first book, I saved my food money from Black Flag, little here, little there, and I saved enough to make a fold and staple book. I couldn't type, so I hand wrote out the things, and I made a dummy that I could offset, print, fold, and staple. And I sold them for $2. Mainly gave them away, but I sold enough, and they blew out. 500 just went. And then I took that money to make another print run of that. And from that money, I made my first paperback. And 33 years later, that's a fully staffed company with books in translation and hardcover editions and the whole 9 yards. But it started with, I'm gonna do my thing. I'll be City Lights Jr. without the talent. And I did that at the same time I was doing my first spoken word gigs. And why did I have the gumption and the audacity to start my own book company? Because I come from punk rock. I come from watching Ian MacKaye invent Dischord Records on his mom's kitchen table. I come from folding and gluing picture sleeves together. Black Flag had their own label. Of course you do it yourself. You want to make a book? Sit down and write it. Then go to the printing place. Where's a printer? Get in the phone book and find a printer. We make records, make some books. You just do it. It's like you don't even think about it, you just do it. And I'm sure that writing is just awful, but I did it. And without even hesitation, I'm making my own book company. Stop me, I dare you. I never thought about it twice. Just because DIY, man. Like, let your voice be heard.
Well, you know what? People do look at me and see me as creative because I've written so many books, and I am curious. But when I started off in college, in my freshman psych class, they gave us a test for each student to take on creativity. And there were 17 in that class. I can remember it well. And I was at the bottom of the class on creativity. I mean, I was like number 17 out of 17. And what the teacher posted the scores, and so, I mean, I saw how bad I was. And then I really felt bad, not only because I wasn't creative, but I was going to go pastor, I was going to go into ministry, I was going to teach, I was going to do sermons. And then I got to thinking to myself, I'm going to be another boring preacher. And you know, that just gripped me. I thought, oh, this is going to be awful. I'm going to bore people all my life, you know what I mean? And then I'm going to ask them to pay while they hear me. I mean, this is an awful deal. So, and so two things I did, and I talk about it in the book. One is I started filing. I started taking thoughts and quotes. And the reason I started doing that is I thought, if I'm not going to be good at what I say, I need to quote somebody that is good. And so I started filing things that other people would say. So I'd go around and I'd say, well, Ken said, you know what I mean? And Joe said, and Susie said. And so that at least I would be a little bit more interested. And that's how it started. But the big breakthrough I had was, and this will help everyone. How many of you would like to be more creative? Let me see your hands, okay? How many of you would like to just absolutely have an imagination that just took you to a new level? You know what I'm saying? Okay. How many of you already have that because you're on drugs? Okay. Well, here's the key. This will work for you. I promise it'll work for you because it worked for me. I made a major change in my early 30s from just having answers and being a leader that just had to cast vision, show everybody what I was doing and where we were going. And I started asking intentional questions. And I became a person, I ask questions all the time. Every day I ask questions. And I have found just asking questions will take you on exciting journeys more than anything else. You excel in that, Ken. I've watched you over the years. You'd excel really in that. But for my early years, I didn't ask enough questions, and so therefore, I didn't get enough ideas and thoughts from others. So when people say, I want to be more creative, what's step one? Step number one is ask more questions. Just go to people and start asking questions. It's amazing what you'll learn.
So that means taking things, using things in your life that are scars, using those moments as a weapon, right? Using those as using basketball as kind of like a vehicle through which to express yourself, right? So at that moment, for us to face the Celtics again, it's not about the Celtics. It's not about your opponent, it's about you. It's about you taking your inner struggles and channeling that through the game, right? As a way to unleash, right? So now it became a matter of how do I express that to them? How do I get them to that point where they figure this out for themselves? Because I can't say, hey, listen, I need you to play harder.
So what'd you do?
Well, I had to share my story. I had to open up to them and let them know I've dealt with things. This is the things that I use. This is how I go about focus. This is how I deal with adversity. This is how I deal with, arguing with my wife the day of the game and showing up to the game and still having that focus to be able to play. Like, I used those things to open up with them. And then in turn, they were able to take those stories and make them their own.
That whatever you do, somebody can do it better. You have to bring your A game in every single day. There's nothing unique about any one individual. What's unique is their passion, their ability to execute, to meet targets and exceed them. The minute you lose that ability, in capitalism, you're gone. It's a fair trade. The engine that makes you rich can take it all away from you. There are no guarantees. I think that's incredibly important.
It looks like you always go out of your comfort zone, right? Coming onto an island that was completely deserted, no fresh water, you didn't even have the money to buy it, and now you're sleeping on a tent on the beach trying to figure out how to get fresh water here. You do that often. You did it with the airline.
I mean, I was just somebody that experienced the bad experience of traveling on airlines. I was actually trying to get to the BVI, the British Virgin Islands, one day from Puerto Rico, and the same lovely lady was waiting for me, and I'd been away for 3 weeks, and American Airlines bumped the flight. And so I went to the back of the airport, I hired a plane, I hired a blackboard, I wrote Virgin Airlines one way, $29 to the BVI, went around all the people who'd been bumped, and I filled my first plane. And that got me thinking, you know, that airlines do bump people. They don't care about you or me, particularly in the air. And so so I then rang up Boeing and said, do you have any second-hand 747s?
No kidding. I mean, it was literally that you just sat in the airport and said, I'm starting an airline right now because I'm frustrated.
Exactly. And I think most of the best entrepreneurial ideas come out of frustration. I think, you know, if you're frustrated about something, the best way of sorting it out is get out and do it, and you've got yourself a business.
We know from our past experiences that big things start small. You know, the biggest oak starts from an acorn, and you've got to recognize, if you want to do anything new, you've got to be willing to let that acorn grow into a little sapling and then finally into a small tree, and maybe one day it'll be a big business on its own.
And in fact, that's one of the mottos for one of your initiatives, and forgive my pronunciation of the Latin, but Gradatim ferociter. What does that mean to you?
Well, it means step by step ferociously, and it's the motto for Blue Origin. Basically, you can't skip steps. You have to put one foot in front of the other. Things take time. There are no shortcuts. And but you want to do those steps with, you know, passion and ferocity.
Yeah, I started working at this video store. Was pretty much what you're talking about around that time, and it was great at first because I'd always hated day jobs and stuff, and so I got a day job and it ended up being pretty good. But admittedly, I was there for 5 years. At a certain point, it was a narcotic. All right, I didn't have to keep pursuing my dreams because, you know, it's not what I want to do, but it's sort of kind of close. And if I didn't have an artist soul burning in me, I could have made myself happy with that. I could, if I didn't have an artist soul burning to get out, I could have, you know, walked backwards a couple steps and just done that. And that would have been a fulfilling, well, to anybody else, it would have been a fulfilling life. It wouldn't have been for me because I would have known I would have had something to say that I didn't get a chance to say. But it did put me to sleep for a while. And I've always just thought, I mean, what really got everything kind of truly going for me, you could point out a lot of different things, but the bottom line is the fact that I realized that even the group of people I hung around with, they were all great fellas and great gals. But, you know, it was easy for me to think that I was doing a lot because I was doing more to try to move myself forward than they were. But, you know, that's not, okay, I'm a big fish in a puddle. So what? All right, they're not doing anything. All right, so yeah, I'm doing more than them. But I realized that actually I need to get my ass out to Hollywood and meet other people who are, you know, like in my category or working a little higher, and I should be the weakest link in my chain that I have, and that'll make me be stronger. It'll make me run faster. I mean, like an analogy I've always used is, all right, if you run the 100-yard dash with people that can't run as fast as you, yeah, you'll win, hands down, you know that. But if you run with people much faster than you, all right, yeah, you might come in last every single time, but your time will be better because they're making you run all the faster. They're making you dig down just a little bit more. It doesn't matter that you won, your time is faster. And that's what I knew I had to do. I had to get out of Loserville and throw myself into a place where, like, this is what I do for a living.
One night, Chris had gone to bed. I'd been struggling. We still had all the same problems. We still had a lien on the house, still facing bankruptcy, still fighting like crazy. I was still unemployed. They still hadn't figured out like the solution yet for the business. And I was about to turn off the TV, and there on the TV, there was this rocket launching, and I thought, oh my gosh, that is it. I am gonna launch myself out of bed like a rocket ship, like NASA, right here, had launched me out of that bed. And I'm gonna move so fast that I don't think. I'm gonna beat my brain. Now, here's a really interesting point. I talk a lot about your instincts and inner wisdom. And we can get into this a little bit later, but a lot of us talk about the fact that you have a gut feeling. But what all this research that I've done for the book and all the speaking that I do, what I've discovered that's fascinating is actually when you set goals, when you have an intention on something that you want to change about your life, your brain helps you. What it does is it opens up a checklist, and then your brain goes to work trying to remind you of that intention that you set. And it's really important to develop the skill, and I say that word purposefully, the skill of knowing how to hear that inner wisdom and that intention kicking in and leaning into it quickly. So for me, my brain saying, that's it, right there, move as fast as a rocket, Mel. I wanted to change my life. And I think most people that are miserable or that are really like dying to be great and dying to have more, we want to change. We want to live a better life. We want to create more for our families. We want to be happier. The desire is there. Again, it's about how do you go from knowledge to action. So the first thing in this story that's important is realizing that the answer was in me. And my mind was telling me, pay attention. Could have also been the bourbon. I had a couple of Manhattans that night. But anyway, the next morning, the alarm goes off, and I pretended NASA was there. It's the stupidest story. I literally went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I counted out loud, and then I stood up. And I'll never forget standing there in my bedroom. It was dark, it was cold, it was winter in Boston. And for the first time in 3 months, I had beaten my habit of hitting the snooze button. I couldn't believe it, and I thought, wait a minute. Counting backwards, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Well, the next morning I used it again and it worked. The next morning I used it again and it worked. The next morning I used it again and it worked. And then I started to notice something really interesting. There were moments all day long, just like that 5-second moment in bed, where I knew, knowledge, what I should do. And if I didn't move within 5 seconds, my brain would step in and talk me out of it. Every human being has a 5-second window, might even be shorter for you. You have about a 5-second window in which you can move from idea to action before your brain kicks into full gear and sabotages any change in behavior. Because remember, your brain is wired to stop you from doing things that are uncomfortable or uncertain or scary. It's your job to learn how to move from those ideas that could change everything into acting on them.
I've been making music now with, like Tony Bennett for a couple of years, and Elton John is, one of my closest friends, and his husband David. And they just have showed me that, like, I'm a baby in my artistry, and I just have to keep making music and keep going. And so my focus really for this album is showing that to young girls and to boys that want to make music, that you don't have to get lucky on the internet. It's not a social media game. You don't have to find the hot producer and get the hot track, to be a star. You can just learn how to play an instrument and sit in your room and practice and write songs and poetry, and then you can go around the corner to the bar and meet other artists that do the same thing that you do, and you can hang out and talk about music and write songs, and then you can play at the spot around the corner and gain one fan, and then do it over and over and over again until you're discovered.
You need to know what your unique strengths are and be willing to delegate. So I would say that the question of whether you should take a skill, learn it yourself, delegate it to someone else, or hire a new team member are determined by having a very accurate self-assessment, an assessment of your team's skills. Not only what you can do, but what you should be doing. That's very important. So if you're a startup CEO or founder and you have a team of, say, 2 to 10 people, as soon as you have funds to higher, you should not be focused on the things that you are bad at. It sounds very, very intuitive, but it's not, because you might have enough time to do those things, but the question is, do you have the attention to dedicate to those things so they're not an interruption? Especially if you're a venture-backed startup and you're competing against other companies that also have a lot of funding, the game and the race goes to the swift. So you have to have a lot of velocity.
ESPN called me. They did a story on me this past summer, but they called me one day and I picked up the phone. They said, "Is this Inky Johnson?" I said, "Last time I checked, I'm Inky Johnson." They said, "Is this the same guy that said if you could change what happened to you, you wouldn't?" I said, "Absolutely." They said, "It's our understanding the game of football meant the world to you." I said, "At one point, it did." They said, "It's our understanding that your family was banking on you making it to the NFL so they can have a better way of life." I said, "Yep, that's correct." They said, "We're coming to see you." I said, "All right, cool, come on." They said, "But we don't want to see you in Atlanta. We want to see you in Neyland Stadium on the exact yard line where your life changes. The same time of day. The only thing that won't be present is Air Force's team." I said, "All right, cool." And so they take me to Neyland Stadium, they put me on the exact yard line where my life changed. They said, "Now tell your younger self why you wouldn't stop your injury if you could. If you could be in the NFL right now making millions of dollars, tell your younger self why you wouldn't change that situation if you could." And I say the reason I wouldn't change it, believe it or not, it has nothing to do with me. Like on a personal level, he thought I was going to say, because of the man that I've become, the perspective that I've acquired, my faith has been fortified. He thought I was going to say something like that. I said, no, it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the lives that have been affected by the result of the process and the thing that I represent in the world. What my spirit represents when somebody see me, they think perseverance. What my spirit represents when somebody see me, they think don't quit. What my spirit represents when somebody see me, they think that's a quality individual right there. What my character represents in the world. And every single day we're putting something out like that represents something. When people see that, they think it's a thought that comes to the mind. When he said gold standard, he gave me that, I felt a certain type of way. When he gave me the gold standard, I felt a certain type, I felt different. Gold standard, I felt like that went with me. Because I think in what I do, the line of business I'm in, I'm the gold standard. Because I don't compromise. And every single day, I'm going to give you my very best. You can bet your bottom dollar. Every single day, I'm going to bring that gold standard to life. And I'm not just bringing it in one aspect of life. I'm bringing it in every single aspect of life. I'm not going to be one of these people in the world that's a public success, but they're a private failure. Meaning they give everything they got to one aspect of life, but the other areas, they lack off. No, I'm going to give every single thing I got to every aspect of my life because I represent something. When people see me, they think something. Whether that's character, never giving up, never surrendering. And the thing that we can never do is forget what we represent. Because that's how guys end up under a bridge on a cardboard box sleep. They forget what they represent when life hits them with adversity. My only charge for you, never forget what you represent.
There were other things that I probably should have done, not from my perspective. I mean, from my point of view, I did the right things. Every film that I've done, I'm happy that I made that choice. I don't have any regrets whatsoever. But I mean, in terms of sustaining box office, bankability, I should have done a few other things that I didn't do, but I'm glad I didn't do them, me.
Because it wouldn't have been you.
Yeah, it would have been for the wrong reasons. Everything that I've been lucky enough to do, I did for the right reasons.
First of all, you have to treat yourself like you matter. Because if you don't, then you don't take care of yourself, and you become vengeful and cruel. And you take it out on people around you, and you're not a positive force. None of that's good. So you suffer more, and so does everyone around you. And there's a malevolence that enters into it. None of that's good. So that's what happens if you don't treat yourself like you matter. And then, well, what happens if you don't treat other people like they matter? Well, you lie to them, you cheat them, you steal, you enter into impulsive relationships with them. They can't trust you. That doesn't go anywhere. They don't like you. You end up alone at best, and maybe like incarcerated at worst. Like that doesn't work. And so you watch the people around you who thrive, regardless of what they say. They act out the proposition that everyone matters. And then you have a functional society. And I think, okay, well, if if when you act out the proposition that everyone matters, you have a functional society, maybe that's evidence that that proposition is true. It's like, I think it's true.
You've lived a life dominated by doubt and fear. How do you step into bravery? Step. That's how you step into bravery. Step. Take the step. Step aggressively towards your fear. And that step towards your fear is the step into bravery. Because we're scared of what we don't know. And there is only one way to learn and to know, and that is to confront that fear. You have to step, you have to go. And this simple action, this simple attitude, it answers so many questions. So many questions. How do you get to the gym every day? You step. You go. How do you change your diet? You step. You go. How do you overcome fear of failure or fear of success or fear of fear itself? You step. And how do you face the fear of the unknown? You step. Don't wait anymore. Don't think anymore. Don't plan anymore. Don't contemplate anymore. Don't make any more excuses or justifications. Don't rationalize anything else. No, no, and no. Instead, be aggressive. Take action now. And what is the first action that you need to take? What's the first step you need to take? The first step you need to take is just that. Step.
Whether it's personal or people around me, when you see people that are positive, that look at something good and something bad that took place, they move along in life faster, they're better, and people want to be around these people. I mean, too often people gossip. The one gossip person wants to be around the other person that gossips. But they don't realize when you gossip, you're saying something you heard about somebody else. You're telling everybody, what if part of it was wrong? You're gonna go out and tell every person you told this, oh, I'm sorry it was wrong. Tell everybody you told, it's not gonna happen. So it's things you learn about. Don't gossip, don't belittle people if you don't have to. God, please don't. Try and look at the positive angle. What good could come out of something? And that positiveness is gonna make you live longer, happier, and wake up in the morning happy, not, oh my God, I gotta go to work, I can't wait till I get home, I wanna retire, because people were not positive, they were not happy. And what happens when they retire? They hate their job, they retire, 3 or 4 years later they're dead because they have nothing to do. That positive attitude, be around positive people, encourage positiveness. If you find yourself walking around just complaining all the time around people that complain a lot, man, move or just try and do something different, change your life. Being positive and a positive attitude is find something positive and something bad. Makes you look for solutions. When I was down and out, okay, oh, pop bottles, let's get the pop bottles, cash them in.
Everyone in this room knows how to create. You're not a manager of your life, you're a creator of your life or you wouldn't be in this room. How do you create your life? You get hungry for something, don't you? Who has done something in your life that once seemed difficult or impossible and now it's part of your life? Who's got something in your life in this area? Say I. How did you do it? You created it 3 ways. Number 1, you decided there's something you wanted so bad that you unleashed all your desire. You became obsessed with it. If it was a business or a car or a relationship or a transformation in your body, if there's something you once envisioned and now it's real, it's because you didn't just envision it, you brought so much emotion to it that now it's in your life. It was once a dream, it was once a goal, and now it's in your life. How many have something like that in your life now? Say I. You may take it for granted now, Hopefully not. But it was once just a vision. It may have seemed impossible at one time. So how did you do it? You started with a concrete vision of what you wanted, and you focused on it continuously, didn't you? Wherever focus goes, energy flows. You envisioned something, you got clear about it, and then you started thinking about all the reasons why you wanted it. You got excited about it. Said, this is what's next for me now. I want this. You may have dreamed about it, thought about it, talked about it. But when you focus on something continuously, something magical happens. You get insights, don't you? You overhear a conversation and you hear something you wouldn't have heard if you didn't have that outcome or goal that you wanted so badly. Who's ever come up with something, obsessed about it, didn't even know how to do it, and it just happened and it came together? Who's had that experience? Say I. So why don't we tap into that power now for your business and life?
Some of the most important discoveries, inventions, and innovations within a field come from people who are trained in a much different field and who have an outsider's approach. Louis Pasteur was a classic example of this. He was trained as a chemist and mineralogist, so he brought a much different way of thinking to the subject of medicine and germs, a method that was infinitely more creative. Albert Einstein was a complete outsider. His two most important discoveries came when he was working at the Swiss Patent Office. Google itself exemplifies this idea. It is perhaps the most successful business on the planet, founded by two men who are relatively complete outsiders to business and who therefore structured and directed their company in a very novel and creative fashion. I could go on and on and on with this list, including many great artists. There are two important reasons why outsiders generally have a creative advantage. First, they are less steeped in and burdened by the conventions of the field that they are attacking. They ask a different set of questions. They approach problems from unconventional angles. And second, they are often trained in totally unrelated fields and so can make interesting and creative connections between two very different forms of thinking, like science and business, or chemistry and medicine, or engineering and design. Now, we can't all consciously follow such a path, but even within the careers that we're pursuing, we can train ourselves to think like outsiders and help loosen up the mind in the process.
I came home one night from work spraying for cockroaches. And long story short, I turned on the Discovery Channel. I saw some guys going through Navy SEAL training. And they were going through Hell Week and they were getting their ass just beat. You know, in and out of the water, guys ringing the bell. They were suffering. And I was weighing like 297 pounds. And I had to make a change in my life. You know, I was at an all-time low and I wasn't going anywhere. And I was exactly what everybody said I was gonna be, which was nothing. So I had to make a change.
What was it about seeing suffering that's really interesting? And I actually get it, but I want to hear you explain it. Why suffering was the thing that triggered that thought?
Well, for me, growing up, I came from a horrible background. I got called nigger every day of my life growing up, lived in a small town. The Klan headquarters at that time was about 20 minutes from where I lived. Right. One of the high-ups in the KKK, son, sat behind me in 2 classes, so he called me nigger all the time. Got my first car, they spray painted nigger, we're gonna kill you on it. So I was just an insecure, scared kid. And the only way I could find myself was through putting myself through the worst thing possible. I'm gonna say the exact opposite of what today's world is saying. So we read a bunch of books nowadays. As humans, we wanna find out how to be someone else. What we don't do is we don't go inside. So literally turn yourself inside out. Read the book that's like we're writing a book every day of our lives. Every day we're seeing who we are as people. When I was growing up, I lied for people to accept me because I didn't accept myself. So I would make up stories so then you would accept me into your world. I would, everything I did was for someone else to like me. It wasn't until I started reading my own book about how pathetic I was as a human being. I can blame my dad, I can blame kids at school, I could blame having health issues, ADD, my mom not being around. Great mom, but she was doing her thing.
Right.
I could blame a lot of people. And that's the book I was reading. And I put it off on everybody else. It wasn't until I said, you know what? For me to fix this, I gotta read what the f is wrong with David Goggins. Not blame anybody. Read my book and say, okay, I'm afraid of my shadow. How can I overcome that? Go in the military, get your ass kicked, do things you hate to do, be uncomfortable every day of your life. Roger that. I'm not the smartest kid in the world. Okay. Instead of somebody saying, oh no, you're smart. No, don't say that to yourself. I said to myself, no, I'm a dumb. Okay, roger that. How you get smarter? Educate yourself. So the things that we run from the truth. We're running from the truth, man. So the only way I became successful was going towards the truth. As painful and as brutal as it is, it changed me. It allowed me to become, in my own right, who I am today.
Many people spend their lives in a state of almost permanent dissatisfaction.
Right.
Unfortunately. So they may be looking for some purpose, or they may have given up hope that there is some purpose for them, and they're just surviving or making a living.
Or caught up in the doing.
Caught up in the doing, in the stress of it.
Right.
And so usually when we talk about purpose, when people talk about purpose, they think of purpose in terms of future. Where am I going? What am I supposed to do? What's the direction I'm going? What is my goal, the goal that I want to achieve? And that, of course, is there. It has its place, but I call that the outer purpose. More fundamental than the outer purpose is what most people usually overlook, and that is the realization that what matters most is finding your inner purpose. So inner purpose is aligning your life fully with the present moment, so that you are no longer out of alignment with the present moment, which leads to the state of dissatisfaction that we talked about. That is the reality for many people. So you have to go, first of all, beyond the state of dissatisfaction that is so many people's reality.
Right.
But you cannot go beyond the state of dissatisfaction through some future goal that says, one day I would like to be in a state of fulfillment or satisfaction. No, you have to enter the state of fulfillment and satisfaction by becoming one internally with the present moment. And your purpose then, your inner purpose, is that alignment with where you are right now, to be totally where you are, and whatever you are doing, even if it doesn't look like the life purpose that you want for the next 30 years, whatever you are doing now, to be total in doing it, and no matter what it is, to be true to life by being true to this moment.
I always want to constantly evolve, you know, I always want to constantly grow. I never want to get to a point where I feel like I got it figured out, you know, like I always want to like kind of like push myself to be better, you know, and do greater things, no matter what it is. I mean, I want to be the best. I'm a competitor, you know, I like to compete, you know, like growing up with, you know, with the name Michael Jordan, you know, I've always had a certain pressure on myself, and always having to kind of like, you know, prove people wrong, and I just kind of like put an instant chip on my shoulder of wanting to just to be great, you know, and do great things, and also help people, man. I'm really big in the next generation. I feel like that's the only way it's going to get better moving forward, is if, you know, you got to lead this world in a better place than it was when you came in. You know, I'm born in '87, -- I don't know when I'm gone, you know what I'm saying? But I want to work on my dash, you know what I'm saying? I want to work on that time that I'm here. And it's, if I can make it easier for the next round of filmmakers and the next round of actors coming up, you know, I'm content with going out on that.
Take it as it comes. Again, like I said, you were asking me about the future. I'll let you know a little bit closer. You know what I mean? As far, all I can see right now is the gold. That's all I can see.
You need to bet on your strengths and don't give a about what you suck at. You're gonna, way too many people in this room are gonna spend the next 30, 40 years of their lives trying to check the boxes of the things that they're not as good at, and that you're gonna waste a load of time and lose. I highly recommend auditing yourself, or if you have no empathy or EQ or self-awareness, then find somebody in your family or friendship that does, and let them tell you who you are. And once you believe that, either for yourself or someone else told you, go directly, all chips, all into that, because that is the only possible way, in my opinion, watching from the outside. That is, let me rephrase, that is a very highly likely way of over-indexing, because the truth is, if you want to be an anomaly, you've got to act like one. You know, like, and so that's it. That's what I got. So thanks for having me.
As I started studying people that did more, not people that didn't do more, not people that said do less, not people that said, hey, don't be satisfied or be satisfied, not people that said, hey, be grateful for what you have. I started studying people that said and had done more, that you can do more. That's who I listen to today. I listen to the people, my friends in my life, the people I listen to, the people I talk to, the people that I follow on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram. I don't follow everybody. I follow the people that say, you can do more, dude. I follow the people that say, I am doing more. I follow the people that are actually doing something on this planet to make a difference for the better. You have to be selective. You have to give something up, okay? You cannot listen to everybody, to every voice, to every person that's quit or given up. You got to make a decision. If you have that little voice inside of you that says you can do more, you have to give attention to that voice, and you got to feed it with those that support that idea that you can do more.
I focus on things that are AI driven, artificial intelligence driven, whether it's machine learning, deep learning neural networks, medical applications, but within AI is a buzzword that everybody's using right now. You know, and to that point, you know, we as old guys, we go back and it's like 1995, we talk about the internet. And I would say to people back in 1995, look, if you don't understand the internet, you're not gonna be able to do business. And now that's just blocking and tackling, it seems obvious. Back then it wasn't. Right? I could even take you further back to my first company. You know, what we did, it was a company called Micro Solutions, and we did local area networks and wide area networks. And I used to walk into companies and say, you're gonna have to hook these PCs together at some point. That'll make you more productive, more effective, you know, give you a competitive advantage. And people were like, nah, I'll just carry this floppy from this PC to that PC. Yeah, okay. But today, we're at the same type of inflection point with artificial intelligence. You don't have to be an expert and be able to put together your own neural network. You know, you don't have to know what weights and biases are. But you have to have more than just a cursory understanding. Just like you have to know the difference between, you know, different types of websites, and you have to understand e-commerce if you're in e-commerce. You have to have a cursory understanding of how apps work. You're gonna have to have at least, if not more, cursory understanding of artificial intelligence, because it will change everything we do. And if the internet was 10x in terms of change to business, artificial intelligence will be 100x or more. If you go to my house, right next to my bed, there's a book, Machine Learning for Dummies. If you go into my bathroom, there's deep neural networks for dummies, right? If you go in, there's a something for dummies in every room of my house. You know, that can go two ways, I know, but I'm just telling you, put the time. I mean, I've taken, you know, I can't even tell you how many hours now I spend every week, if not daily, working. Like, I'll go into Amazon, AWS, and go through their machine learning tutorials. Don't think to yourself, I'm not technical enough, or I'm not gonna get this, or I don't get into this, or it's too much. Try it. Get as far as you can, because it's like doing a basic website and a little bit of HTML. Just having done that, you feel smarter and you feel a little bit more confident about this. You know, I don't want to be an alarmist, but I'm trying to scare the hell out of you because it's important.
It's a very natural process to begin something, to be very excited, and then as you go down that process to realize, yeah, I actually don't like this, it's not giving me as much energy as I thought it would, it's taking energy away, and therefore I want to give up and quit that thing. And she said, if you do that once or twice, like, hey, so be it, but if you're doing it every time, if you just love that initial rush, that excitement of something new, but the actual nitty-gritty reality of getting good at it, of doing what Michio Kaku calls having butt power, meaning you sit your butt in the seat and you do the work, if that's really your problem and nothing is interesting enough for you to sit there and do the work, you haven't developed grit yet. And so grit is the ability to persevere, to see things through, to go past the point at which it has stopped being fun and it becomes boring because you believe in your end goal enough, you're excited by what you're trying to accomplish so much that you're willing to fight through all of that difficulty. You're willing to fight through the boredom. You're willing to fight through the unease that arises when you step outside your comfort zone. You're doing things you're not good at and things that are boring. Those are the two things that I find kill most people. They just cannot handle the things that make them go, oh God, like I'm not very good at this and I'm feeling really badly about myself. And they forget that they can get good on a long enough timeline. And then two, inevitably, in any pursuit of greatness, in any endeavor where you're trying to gain mastery, you're gonna get bored because practice is repetition. It's doing something over and over and over and over to really train yourself to get to the point where you're truly exceptional. And there's just so much boredom inherent in that process. So building in the resilience to see all that stuff through is the key part of grit.
And when I say life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, I really don't know if that's true. I'm just making a conscious choice to perceive challenges as something beneficial so that I can deal with them in the most productive way. You'll come up with your own style. That's part of the fun.
So when we came to America, we were poor and broke, the way I looked at it, because we would always run out of money before run out of month. We decided, do we do without electricity or gas? Because some months we couldn't afford to pay both. And being broke is being without money. Being poor is being kind of scarcity-minded, poor-minded. And we just realized that money's for the rich, money's for the Americans, it's for the people who were born here, who went to college. And that's how I grew up. And later, Jim Franco taught me that, hey, you know what? You can't be scarcity-minded. You have to live in abundance. You have to understand that people just want a solution to a problem and they don't care about the color of your skin, about the level of your education. They want a solution to a problem. So he taught me, he had to break all these old patterns that I had, right?
What were some of the patterns?
Some of the patterns were that money's for the white folk and not for the foreigners.
You actually thought?
Yeah, I really, because that's how it was. Because every time we went and got more food stamps, it was all foreigners. There was no white people in line, at least not in the parts of Santa Ana that I was raised. And so I felt that money was for the people who were telling us to leave this country, go back to your own country. And that also puts a chip on your shoulder, right, against them. And so I guess I had some reverse racism towards white America. Now I realize for no apparent reason. There was a couple of idiots in every culture, I imagine, right? But so that was one pattern that I had. Another pattern that I had was that being proud to be blue collar. Like my dad was like, and he still says this, work is holy, and I believe that work is holy. But the fact that he had so many jobs, a paper route, pumping gas, worked at a pizzeria, and so because of that mindset, blue collar, we were always this blue collar mentality, and I took pride in being blue collar. Another pattern Jim Franco had to break was like, dude, be white collar. Don't use the shovel, sell the shovel. I'd never heard that phrase before. I'm the guy that took pride in, I could dig a deeper hole, a deeper trench, I could outwork you, but that's still trading time for dollars. And so to be able to break those limiting belief systems that I had, to me was huge. And all of a sudden I realized I'm no longer poor-minded. I may end up broke again. I do really well now, but I may make one or two bad decisions with my money or my investment and end up being broke again, but I'll never be poor. And I know how to get back from broke because I know how to add value to society, solve problems in exchange for money. But I'll never be poor again. And poor is a state of mind of feeling out of control, scarcity-minded, taking pride in being blue collar. No one should ever take pride in being blue collar, period. You've got a brain, you've got a solution to a problem that people want to pay for, put it out there.
So when you say scarcity-minded, abundant-minded, what do you mean?
Well, a scarcity-minded person says, uh-oh, someone else opened up a gym, across the street from me, they're gonna put me out of business, I better charge less, right? The abundant-minded person says, someone else opened up a gym across the street from me, I better out-service them, outwork them, out-social media them, right? So the scarcity-minded person is always, the sky is falling, the Chicken Little mentality, oh my gosh, if Trump goes into office, then we're all screwed. Oh my gosh, if Hillary goes into office, then we're all screwed. I don't care who's in office anymore. I control my own economy. The economy can crash and go back up and back down again. I will find a way, as Tony Robbins says, I'm built for winter. I just didn't know it. And so more people need to be abundant-minded in that if the economy crashes, I just have to deliver more value and create this category of one about myself. If competition shows up, I have to outservice them, outwork them, out-social media them, versus shrivel up and die.
There's a very thin dividing line between success and failure when you start a business from scratch. And if you don't have enough money to pay the bills, you go the wrong side of that dividing line. And if you can somehow get enough money to pay the bills, you stay the right side of that dividing line. I've always been running faster than perhaps I should, and I have great difficulty saying no to things, so keep on taking on new things. And we've just managed to stay the right side of the dividing line over the last 50 years in business. But equally, in those early days, when you're starting a business without any financial backing, it's easy to slip the wrong side. And in fact, most entrepreneurs do slip the wrong side. And the important thing is then just to pick yourself up. And start again, and if it doesn't work at that time, keep going until you do succeed, and not to give up.
How did you stay motivated all the time? People ask me that all the time, and the answer is I didn't, and neither did you to become successful. The separator in life is really important. People think the most inspired, motivated person wins. Nah, not really. It's the person who can work on the days they're not inspired and motivated. It's what do you do when you're not feeling great? What do you do when it's not your best day? How do you do that? Carries you through is rituals and habits. So when you're fatigued, when you're tired, when you're under pressure, you react reflexively. And so successful people rely on habits and rituals, not just their inspiration and motivation level. Of course, we're both professionals at being motivated and inspired, but that's not every day, every minute. And so what do? I work on the days because my habits and rituals carry me through. And so for me, here's how I look at my life and my day. If I can control the first 30 minutes of my day, and the last 30 minutes of my day, I have a whole lot better chance of the middle of my day being controlled. And so I'm a freak about the first 30 minutes of every day. It's really about the first 45 minutes, and I'm obsessive about the last 45 minutes of every single day. That gives me some illusion in my mind and measure of control. The other thing it does, it delivers to me habits and rituals that serve me, that I do every day that are consistent. It gives me comfort in stormy times. That ocean out there is raging at the top right now, right? The waves are crashing. At the bottom of that ocean, it's completely calm. At the bottom of that ocean is the habitual part of the water, right? It's the part of the water that stays the most consistent. That's why it's so calm, okay? So when you see someone out of control, their emotions are up and down all the time. This is someone who is without rituals and habits. Successful people have those, and so they do. And so it keeps me calm, it keeps me comfortable.
When I decided to do this, I first talked to my wife, who is sitting here in the audience, and she had married a relatively stable, goofy, but still relatively stable person working at a Wall Street firm. I worked at a quantitative hedge fund, and this was a hard decision. And I was looking for the right framework in which to make that kind of important decision. And the right framework I found is a regret minimization framework. And so that's just a nerdy way of saying that you want to project yourself to age 80, and then think back over your life. And if you're 80, what are you want to minimize the number of regrets you have throughout that period of time. I think this is something a lot of people do, maybe subconsciously. Very few people probably name it regret minimization framework because most people are healthier than that. But it was a very clear way for me to think about making that kind of life decision. And the way it helped was I thought, okay, if I go do this thing and participate in this thing called the internet that I genuinely believe is going to be a big deal, and if I fail, am I going to regret having tried and failed? And I knew the answer to that was no. But I also knew that if I didn't try, that I would always regret that. I would always wonder, and it would haunt me until that mythical day, which I actually hope will come.
When the things most matter, you so desperately don't want to destroy it for being scared that you can really destroy it. Sure. When I hosted the Oscars, I was like, wow, man, this is a billion people, and I just thought, okay, whatever you do, just remember, you're a kid from Mooroonga in Sydney, you're hosting the Oscars, have some fun, and luckily for me, those turning points, I've somehow always stuck to that idea of just having fun.
Being an actor, or even being an artist, and I had studied in school behind the camera,
was not even in the vernacular of my dreams. I was raised 9 to 5, you go to work, you work your way up a scale.
That's from your old man, right?
Yeah. And that was all I was able to even, like I said, dream about. So the idea of living life and having a career that was in the arts, that was in the storytelling business, that was something that was really fun, was not something that, like I said, I even dreamed of. I was in the right place, right time, right bar. Guy found me and said, "You want to come in and read for a part in a movie I'm here producing called Dazed and Confused?" I said, "Sure." I go read for the part. It's got 3 lines. 3 lines turns into 3 weeks' work. They're paying me $325 a day. People are telling me I'm pretty good at it, and I think I'm getting away with something. And I still do feel like I'm getting away with something.
Didn't you? People are just afraid, man. So many people are afraid of rejection, of failure. But without failure, you have no success. What stung the most, biggest failure, I had a TV show called The Big House, got picked up by ABC. They told me that we were gonna do 12 episodes, flew me down to New York. This is the biggest news ever. I'm about to be rich, holy shit, I'm 22. I got a TV show, I'm writing, executive producing, starring in the show. You know what, no, I'm not just gonna go down there by myself. We gotta bring the cast. They said, "Nope, Kevin, we only flying you." I said, "Well, I'm gonna pay for the cast to come." I took my own money, flew them all down to New York. Get to New York, put on my suit, people taking pictures of me walking out. This is the best thing ever. Holy shit, I'm famous. This is what it is. I get to the upfronts. Upfronts are where they announce your TV show. It's a slew of shows. They're announcing their time slots. I'm next. They're about to announce The Big House. Somebody puts their hand on my chest and says, "Kevin, wait." They talking to earpiece. They said, "Nope, I'm standing with him right now." I'm like, "What's going on? What do they want me to do? You know, they want me to go on the other side or something?" He goes, "Okay, I'll tell him. They canceled, they're not gonna pick you up. You gotta step back." And I was like, "Wait, that don't sound right." Literally that fast, they sent me home. They were like, "You gotta just go home." TV show got picked up 6 months later for 6 episodes. The 3rd episode's aired, they canceled the show again. I got the show canceled twice in a 6-month period, which has never been done before. I booked about 3 more pilots, got canceled. There was a show called John Stamos' show. He was a publicist. And they wanted me as a series regular. The show was going great. Ratings were good. Put me on the show got canceled. It was everything I touched on TV turned to I'm now just sitting out here doing nothing. I ain't had no money. Borrowing money left and right. I decided to say, F it. I said, I'm just gonna do stand-up comedy and focus on my craft. And I slaved the road for about 5 years, doing the same circuit over and over again.
I really think creativity is important, whatever you do. I think it's fun to be creative with meals that you cook or meals that you eat or vacations that you go on or dates that you set. You know, I just think it's fun to be creative. Everyone likes that. And I think authenticity is just super important. I might be hyper aware of it because I grew up in an industry that's wrought with inauthenticity, that people will look you right in the face and totally tell you what you need to hear at the moment. I don't think that's unique to that industry, but it's filled with it there. So I think transparency and authenticity is just super important. I don't mind having conflict with someone if we can then be done with it. It's that years spent where you know that something's going on and you're not talking about it, those awful Thanksgivings with the family of cousins. Where you're like, "Hey, Jim. Hey, Neil." I hate that. I hate that. Life's too short for that stuff.
Just saw this Rumi quote that I love. "Set your life on fire and seek those who fan your flames." The Philly translation of that is, don't be hanging with no jank-ass jokers that don't help you shine. The prerequisite for spending time with any person is that they nourish and inspire you. They feed your flame. Look at your last 5 text messages. Are those people feeding your flames or dousing your fire? Put your phone down for just a second and look around. Look to the people around you. Are those people throwing logs on your fire or are they pissing on it? The people that you spend time with are gonna make or break your dreams. Everybody don't deserve to be around you. You gotta defend your light with your life. So who are the people in your life that are fanning your flames? Shout them out, tag them below.
You'd think there were no hurdles or obstacles that I had to overcome, but even when I got to high school, I wasn't ranked. I wasn't ranked. I wasn't highly touted as a high school prospect. I had nobody really running, knocking on my door saying, please, please, please come play for our school, until Coach McKillop called. And everything happens for a reason, and there's a story to everything. And if you take time to realize what your dream is, and what you really want in life, no matter what it is, whether it's sports, whether it's in other fields, you have to realize that there's always work to do, and you want to be the hardest working person in whatever you do, and you'll put yourself in position to be successful. And you have to have a passion about what you do. And basketball was mine, and that's what's carried me to this point.
I read this book because I was in disbelief, because people would tell, here's the strategy for success of The Secret, right? Go into your house, into a quiet room, and you close the lights, draw the shades, and sit on a couch and visualize a big fat check. 25 G's, $1,000 US, okay, with your name on it. And I want you to imagine that check and just make that check go bigger in your mind and make it real, more real, and just put it out into the ether of the universe, and the law of attraction will take hold. Just think about it. Bullshit, right? Hello? If that's your strategy for success, the only thing that will show up in your mailbox is not the check, it's a freaking eviction notice from your landlord. They'll be towing away your car, your wife or your husband will be over the next door neighbor, and you'll be still saying, where's the check? Where's the check? Where's the... Okay? The Secret is a load of crap, okay? Do I believe in manifestation? Yeah! Damn straight I do, but you gotta take action. I'm one of those unfortunate people. I tried it. I really did. I swear I tried it. I read the books, well, let me try, So I sat there and I prayed for the check, never came. But when I went out and started taking action, guess what? The check came with an extra couple of zeros.
Passion is not an actionable word. It's correct, that those who do the things that they're passionate about do better, but it's not helpful advice. And so the question is, where does passion come from? Passion is a result. Passion is an energy. Passion is the feeling you have when you're engaged in something that you love. Passion is the feeling you have that you would probably do this for free, and you can't believe somebody pays you to do it. And I think we mistake that passion is something we do in our private lives, but it shouldn't be done, in our careers, for example. And I'm a firm believer that you are who you are. And anybody who says, I'm different at home than I am at work, in one of those two places, you're lying. And the goal is to make everything you do in home and at work something that you have excitement to do. So how do you find the things that you're excited to do? Well, it's actually easier than you think. What are the things that you love to do? What are the things that you would do for free? How can you recreate that feeling and be paid for it? So what are the things that I do on the weekend, right? I love, I'm very involved in the art world. I love to go to museums and galleries, but I love to go see dance and performances because I want to see how others are interpreting the world. So that inspires me. New ideas, new thoughts, new ways of looking at the world are things that interest me privately, and I seek it out and pay money for it, right? So does that mean I have to have a career in the arts? No, it means I have to have a career where new ideas are explored, where people are experimenting and trying things out, and I have to explore new ideas and try things out, and I'm just as excited to go to work every day as I am to, go do something on a Saturday night. And so the idea of finding your passion is ironically simple because you should be doing stuff that you enjoy sometimes. What is the stuff that you enjoy, and then what is the stuff that you love? Who are the people that you love, and what do they all have in common?
I find that levels of success in almost any industry or area correlate to a person asking great questions. In some cases, they seem absurd. In fact, the hallmark, in a way, of great questions is that they sound completely ridiculous. So someone might ask, like Peter Thiel, why can't you achieve your 10-year goals in the next 6 months? As a thought exercise, that's a good question to answer for yourself. And these types of questions come up surprisingly often with very, very impressive folks, whether it's in business, military, entertainment, or otherwise. And the way you can get better at questions is by studying interviews in part. So I studied Larry King, I studied Charlie Rose, I studied Terry Gross, I studied go down the list. I studied Tony Robbins, who does in-person, one-on-one interventions at his events in front of 10,000, 5,000 people. And he's just genius with how he uses questions to pattern interrupt and grab someone's attention and divert them in a more productive direction. Now, why is that relevant? It's relevant because thinking is the process of asking questions. You're asking yourself questions and then you're answering them in your own head. So if you get better at asking other people questions, you get better at asking yourself questions, which means you're improving your thought performance and level of thinking.
Everyone has a problem with time, but the day has 24 hours and we sleep 6. Now I know there's some out there that say, whoa, I need 8. Well, I say just sleep a little faster. Because the bottom line is we have 6 hours of sleep, 24 hours are available, so you have 18 hours now available to do your work, your family, your hobbies, and also to learn something new or to do something new, which could easily be that you want to learn a new language, or that you want to read as a New Year's resolution, I have to read a book every week, or you say, I'm gonna go and reshape my body. So you're gonna go and take this hour out of your schedule and say, I'm gonna train an hour every day. So this is, for most people, a huge challenge, but it is totally doable, I can tell them, because the kind of things that I did when I came to this country, I mean, I went to school, I was working in construction, I was working out my 5 hours a day, I was taking acting classes from 8 o'clock at night to 12 midnight. I was doing all of those things. I wanted to make sure that out of the 24 hours of the day, that I don't waste one single hour. Those hours were too precious. And so there I just want to tell people, don't give me this thing, I have a difficult time with the time and I don't have time for this and I don't have that. You have time, you make the time.
Hard work and discipline and rehearsal, and that's always the most thrilling way to earn applause. And everything that you've seen me do, I've always rehearsed a lot for it. So there's a lot of passion that goes behind it.
I mean, doing the same thing, I mean, just being known for like one thing your whole life, that's sad, you know? We all have so many interests, I'm sure. And so, you know, to get to make jobs of them all, or jobs, if you could call it that, but to make businesses out of them all, and see them on a daily basis in your light and how you visualize them is really cool and fun. And we can all do it. We all can do it. So many people are so afraid to try something because they're like, oh, like, I can't leave my job because I have to pay bills, or, it's like, well, start small then. But don't say you can't, because as many times as you say you can, you're not going to. If you don't think you can, you won't. Thoughts become things.
I'm in meetings a lot. My calendar gets very full with those. And then at night, after the kids have gone to bed, I'm on email a great deal. I get messages during the day. That's my chance to give long responses. And then over the weekend, I send a lot of mail as well. I take 2 weeks a year to just go off and read and think, where I'm not interrupted by work or anything else. I'm just solidly trying to think about the future, and people get to send me things to read as part of that so-called Think Week. So it's a nice mix of things. About 25% of the time that I'm out traveling around, meeting with customers, Europe, Asia, and that sort of helps me think, okay, do we have the right priorities? What are people responding well to, and what would they like to see us do better?
I don't try to look too far in advance, because I get overwhelmed really easily. If someone has a lot of weight to lose, if their goal is like lose 100 pounds, I can only imagine, like, even with me with some of my goals, like this recovery, it feels like it's so far away, and it takes so long for you to like start seeing a difference that like you're naturally are motivated to keep going, right? That it'd be super easy to give up or to want to stop. But if you, and I tell people this, if you just focus on all those little moments along the way and ignore what your big goal is, time goes by so fast. Like a year goes by so unbelievably fast that it will be here before you know it. And I completely agree that sometimes if you focus on something that is so far away or does feel so out of reach, you can definitely get too discouraged, like before you actually try to get there.
Start checking in with your thoughts and how you're feeling each day.
So outside of a gratitude practice, which I'm gonna kind of talk about as well, this is probably the #1 fastest way that you can start changing your life. And I'm gonna tell you about the ripple effect that happens. So it's checking in to see where you're at. What emotion are you feeling in that moment? So if you wake up in the morning and you're anything like me, I don't necessarily wake up in the best mood at all. So I really need to start figuring out how to up level my feelings, right? Because our feelings are the best indicators of what we're attracting, what we're going to attract that day, how we're gonna feel, maybe what's gonna come into our life, who we're gonna end up talking to, because truly, I know that we are all on we're all vibrating at a different frequency. So if you are a really positive, excited, happy person who knows that great things are gonna come your way or who's always thinking positive, you're gonna attract that same type of person. And I can see this through my life as I've really started to up-level my life and my thoughts and my business, the people that are being drawn to me. So you really do, it really is like attracts like. So what we wanna do is we wanna get you into that mode, right? Those people that you're like, wow, they can just walk into a room and you just feel their energy. They're just vibrating so high, or maybe they're just always so happy, or they always, you just wanna be around them because you want a piece of what they have. So how do we get there? How do we become one of those people when you wake up in the morning? Maybe if you are at a low point or you're thinking about all the things that you have to do that day, what is a thought or what is something that you can do to get yourself to the next best reachable thought? So I don't want you to think that you have to go from 0 to 100 in that split second. It's basically going from 0 to 5 to 10 to 20 to 50 and working your way up. So it's one thought at a time. So maybe you wake up and you just say 3 things that you're grateful for every single morning. You let yourself really experience being grateful for it. Really think about why you're grateful. And then what you're gonna do is as you mosey down the stairs to get your cup of coffee, you say 3 more things you're grateful for. Or I'm so grateful that I have a job today because of what it allows me to do. And you really start letting that sink in. And you think of something that maybe you're excited about, something that you could create, something that you love about yourself. It's this constant up leveling of your thoughts. So it's guiding your thoughts, right? So instead of just being mindless, which what happens, we're imperfect human beings, right? So when we're mindless and when we don't guide our thoughts, they're gonna go to chaos. They're gonna go to craziness. They're gonna go to overwhelm because life is crazy. And we're constantly getting sidetracked. We're constantly getting distracted. It's literally people's full-time job on TV, on Instagram, on whatever we're doing to distract us, right? They want us to be their consumer. They want us to be completely distracted. They want us to go to this fast food place, do this thing, do that thing. So we need to bring it back to a mindful place. So really that's what we're doing when we up-level those thoughts is how do you bring it back from crazy town? So bring it on back and then guide it to that next best thought, right? Because the next best thought is gonna attract another good thought, attract another good thought, and attract another good thought.
When I get to the courts, and, I have my bag and I'm wearing my hat and my hoodie, this is my office. Like, that's my workplace. And I'm laser focused. And I've had that. I mean, I think it's that mentality that whatever, I just have that tunnel vision, and that's how I go. And when I leave the courts, I got friends, family, jokes, fun. Like, when I get to my office, I close the door, and that's me.
That's you.
Yeah.
I think most forwards like to play under pressure, or else you wouldn't play the forward position. But I do like that pressure, and sometimes you don't always succeed, and that's okay. And as a forward, you have to find that balance. I mean, you're gonna shoot 5 times and maybe you'll score once, maybe you won't. Maybe you'll get 3 goals out of 3 shots. So it's a little unpredictable, and you just kind of got to go with it and have confidence in yourself.
And you worked as a lawyer and a judge 25 years on the bench, even before you broke into TV, which you did at the age of 52.
Right.
Were there any times that you said to yourself, man, this is just too big of a risk?
I did. I said it right at the beginning because, as most of you know, who are even tangentially involved with the entertainment industry, 99% of the things that television produces, that all these really smart people produce, fail. They spend a lot of money, they invest tens of millions of dollars to launch a program, and it goes south. So why did I think at age 52, when nobody knew who the hell I was, that I was going to be able to launch a successful career at my age? But you got to be in it to win it. It's like the lottery says, you know, if you don't buy a ticket, you can't get that gold ring. And I said, I had a great career. I really loved the family court. I wasn't bored with it, but getting a little tired of all the failure despite my best effort. And I thought this might be an adventure, you know, but you had a pension and you had your health coverage and you still had those license plates that were helpful. But I gave it a shot.
Yeah, and you gave it your all.
I gave it a shot, and the truth is, the people originally that produced my program, if I would have listened to them, it would have been a failure. That's true, I can say that now because they can't do anything to me.
Too many of us for a long time have confused our net worth and our self-worth. Your net worth is going to fluctuate. It's going to go up and down. That's what money does. But your self-worth should not. Who you are, what's important to you, how you live, your values should never be negotiable, compromised, and you should never settle. Again, we have gotten to this point where we've got to say to ourselves, my net worth is not my self-worth.
I think the CEO of today not only has to have leadership skills and an IQ, there's got to be a healthy dose of EQ, the emotional side. Because millennials today, young people today, want to come to work for a company that cares about them. They want to feel connected to the company. And I think it's critically important that we humanize the CEO. The CEO cannot be this imperialist that's sitting there. We've got to humanize the CEO. We have to remove the barriers between the CEO and the front line. And that requires a new skill too. So I don't want to say it's me, but I think a lot of women CEOs actually can do pretty well in today's environment because by nature we humanize ourselves a lot more because that's the way we've been brought up. And we listen a lot more, I think. We stop and ask for directions. You know, there's so much we do. And I think that today's world, I mean, there's a new breed of CEOs have come up, men and women, who are doing a very, very nice job. But all of them, I think, are a new breed that's learning that the world is completely different and recognizing that EQ is as important as IQ. That's what I'm trying to focus on as much as I can.
I have an old-fashioned belief that I should expect to make money in things that I understand. And when I say understand, I don't mean understand, you know, what the product does or anything like that. I mean understand what the economics of the business are likely to look like 10 years from now or 20 years from now. I know, in general, what the economics of, say, Wrigley chewing gum will look like 10 years from now. The internet isn't going to change the way people chew gum. It isn't going to change which gum they chew. You know, if you own the chewing gum market in a big way, and you've got Double Mint and Spearmint and Juicy Fruit, those brands will be there 10 years from now. So I can't pinpoint exactly what the numbers are going to look like on Wrigley, but I'm not going to be way off if I try to look forward on something like that. That evaluating that company is within what I call my circle of competence. I understand what they do, I understand the economics of it, I understand the competitive aspects of the business. So figuring out the economic consequences. TV, I think there's, 20, 25 million sets a year sold in the United States. I don't think there's one of them made in the United States anymore. I mean, you'd say TV set manufacturer, what a wonderful business. I mean, everybody, nobody had a TV in 1950, or thereabouts, 45 to 50. Everybody has multiple sets now. Nobody in the United States has made any real money making the sets. They're all out of business. You know, the Magnavoxes, the RCAs, all of those companies. Radio was the equivalent of the over 500 companies making radios in the 1920s. Again, I don't think there's a U.S. radio manufacturer at the present time. But Coca-Cola, you know, what was it, 1884 at Jacobs Pharmacy or whatever, the fellow comes up with something. A lot of copiers over the years. But now you've got a company that is selling roughly 1.1 billion 8-ounce servings of its product, not all Coke, Sprite, and some others, daily throughout the world 117 years later. So understanding the economic characteristics of a business is different than predicting the fact that an industry is going to do wonderfully. And so when I look at the internet businesses, or I look at tech businesses, I say this is a marvelous thing, and I love to play around on the computer, and now I order my books from Amazon and all kinds of things, but I don't know who's going to win. And unless I know who's going to win, I'm not interested in investing. I'll just play around on the computer. And defining your circle of competence is the most important aspect of investing. It's not how important, how large your circle is. You don't have to be an expert on everything. But knowing where the perimeter of that circle of what you know and what you don't know is, and staying inside of it, is all important. Tom Watson Sr., who started IBM, said in his book, he said, "I'm no genius," he said, "but I'm smart in spots, and I stay around those spots." And you know, that is the key. So if I understand a few things, and I stick in that arena, I'll do okay. And if I don't understand something, but I get all excited about it because my neighbors are talking about it, the stocks are going up and everything, I start fooling around someplace else, eventually I'll get creamed, and I should.
I tend to be incredibly modest in terms of describing your talents, and you always seem to belittle your abilities to a certain extent, when clearly there's a reason why everything you do has been working out. I was reading about how you said that to a certain extent that comes from your punk rock roots.
Yep, there's no other choice. In those days, there was no idea of this makes money. There's no idea of like, this is my future. It was like a week at a time. We have 5 shows. We're gonna get to Sunday. Whew. And even those days were like fraught with turbulence. And so I never really saw a future. None of us did. And some of us, you know, didn't make it. Some of them are dead. And some of them are just kind of trying to recreate their past. And so I realized that I have to be very hardworking because I don't have kind of the ease of talent. And I come from that. And I think in a lot of ways it served me very well, in that I am as kind of hardworking as I've ever been, completely without confidence. And I have none. I don't want any, because I think you turn your back on the thing, and that's when you get gored, is when you think, I got this. I never think I got this. I think, oh man, don't screw this up. And I go at everything, like including you and I sitting here right now. I'm trying to be fully engaged. And that intensity, I think, has served me quite well, but it comes from punk rock, absolutely. Last boss I ever had was my boss at Haagen-Dazs, my ice cream job. And to this day, he still comes to my shows. And whenever I see Steve, who got me my first apartment, I was living in my car, he believed in me. Whenever I see him, I get all weepy. I always tell him, it's good to see you, sir. Henry, you can call me Steve. I can't do that, sir. Because he trusted me with his money. And I said, let me run your store. I know how to do this. I can do this. He's like, well, if you screw up, you're out of here. I said, I won't screw up. And I ended up I ran a store. And so, but it was anger that said, I'll be here all damn week. I'll get this whole thing right. I fired a staff and rehired a bunch of people who can really work. And it was out of anger. Like, I'll be back in 4 hours to run this $3.75 an hour job into the ground. And then I joined Black Flag, and I thought I was a hardworking person. Then you meet the guys in Black Flag who are so driven. You see Greg Ginn work 23-hour days. Like, Greg, you're still on the phone. I know. Greg, when did you eat? I don't know. Greg, when was the last time you showered? Do we have a shower? Like, the guy, we were not going to be stopped. And I kind of go at that intensity, kind of anything I do. Like, you're a very calm, good-looking young man. Look at me, I'm a spaz sitting next to you. Like, I'm doing an interview with you. I can't help it.
You're focused.
I'm sweating, man. And so, but I'm like this going to the airport, like 10 miles out. And so, it's anger that has informed kind of my life, and unflatteringly a sense of vengeance. Every damn person who said I wouldn't be anything, I'm crushing them every day. Everybody I had to endure in any band I was in, every day into a powder. Yeah. Thank you. And I wish them no ill. I just wish to shine brighter, and if it burns my body to a crisp, I'm happy to go right now.
My story is that I am a researcher, and I never thought I would have a big public career. And so I did a TED Talk that went very viral. And in the wake of that, I was kind of everywhere for a couple of months on every CNN.com, NPR. It was everywhere, and something I wasn't used to. And the marching orders from my therapist and my husband were, do not read the comments online. So I read all the comments online. And so one morning, I woke up and there were 2 or 3 new articles out, and I started reading the comments. And they were devastating. They weren't about my work, they were about me. They were super personal. And they were the things that creative people play in their mind and then give up doing what they really want to do. Like if I asked every single one of you, you would try, what would you try if you knew people would never say this about you? What would this be? Those were the comments that morning. Of course she embraces imperfection. What choice does she have? Look how she looks. I feel sorry for her kids. Less research, more Botox. Just mean personal attacks, the things that really, up until that moment, had inspired me to stay very small in my life and my career, just so I could avoid those things. So that morning, Steve and the kids leave. I stay home. I get on the couch, and I watch 8 hours of Downton Abbey. And when it's over, I don't want to turn off Downton Abbey. Because the minute you turn off Downton Abbey, then it's like soccer practice and dinner and back to the mean people, and maybe, should I get Botox? And maybe, maybe if I stand still when I talk. So I get out my laptop and I do a search for who was president in the United States during the Downton Abbey era. Have you ever done that? Like you're numbing with TV or a movie, and so when it's over, you just like stay in that space by like learning more about the actors and what's going on. I've been doing this long enough to know that this is like, you're laughing with me, not at me. So I put it in, and Theodore Roosevelt comes up, and a quote comes up. And I read it, and this is what it says. It's a quote from a speech that he gave in the early 1900s at the Sorbonne, and a lot of people call it the Man in the Arena speech. And this is the passage that changes my life. It's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done it better. The credit belongs to the person who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred with blood and sweat and dust, who, at the best, in the end, knows the triumph of high achievement, and who, at worst, if he fails daring greatly. So the moment that I read that, I closed my laptop, and this is what shifted in me. 3 huge things. First, I've spent the last 12 years studying vulnerability, and that quote was everything I know about vulnerability. It is not about winning, it's not about losing, it's about showing up and being seen. The second thing, this is who I want to be. I want to create. I want to make things that didn't exist before I touched them. I want to show up and be seen in my work and in my life. And if you're going to show up and be seen, there is only one guarantee, and that is you will get your ass kicked. That is the guarantee. That's the only certainty you have. If you're going to go in the arena and spend any time in there whatsoever, especially if you've committed to creating in your life, you will get your ass kicked. So you have to decide at that moment, I think for all of us, if courage is a value that we hold, this is a consequence. You can't avoid it. The third thing, which really set me free, and I think Steve, my husband, would argue has made me somewhat dangerous, is kind of a new philosophy about criticism, which is this. If you're not in the arena also getting your ass kicked, I'm not interested in your feedback.
You stare at your past and you'll end up staying there. It's okay to look back and admire it, but you carry on. I'm not in the business of staring back at it. You know what I mean? And getting lost back there. People say a loss can make or break a fighter, but trust me, a win can also make or break a fighter because they get comfortable with a win. People can get comfortable with a win, and slack off then. Slack off on the training. Slack off on the diet. They've won one. They're winners now. That's not me. You know, you sleep on a win and you'll wake up with a loss. So I just carry on, keep doing what I'm doing, and that's why this turnaround is so good for me. Vegas straight away. The Fighting Irish head to the fighting capital. It's perfect. Continue on this path, the freight train straight to the top.
You're only gonna go as far as you think you're worthy. I can push, you can push, you can have the greatest product, but if you don't feel worthy, you will work hard to sabotage that relationship. You don't know
Every
you're
day
doing
you
it.
will.
Right, you don't know you're doing it. You just think these are the things I need, and you're driving that guy away. You're driving that woman away because your self-worth says they weren't gonna stay forever anyway. Or self-worth around money. You have a cap that you feel like you're worthy of $1 million. You will always get to $999,000 and you will stop because your
Right.
self-worth says it.
What's a good exercise or process that we can follow on a daily basis, maybe something simple, to enhance our enrichment
Absolutely.
and worthiness?
Absolutely. I did this for 6 months, every single day right after I brushed my teeth. And it's the ICU exercise. And you get in the mirror now. It's not necessarily simple because you're dealing with yourself.
Of course.
And as complicated as you are, will be the degree
Well, the mechanics of it are
right,
simple.
The mechanics are very
Yes.
simple. Yes, I appreciate that distinction. You get in the mirror and you complete 3 different sentences. You want to write this down. The first sentence, you look at yourself and you say your name. So you say Lewis, and you complete this as I'm proud that you. And find 7 different things every day to celebrate yourself for. 7 different. Each day you can do the same thing you did the day before, but each day do 7 different things to be proud of. The second sentence is gonna knock you down a little bit. It's gonna come from your gut. Lewis, I forgive you for. And cut the shackles to blame, shame, guilt, regret, and anger. In that sentence, you cut those 5 shackles. Not the first day, maybe not the 3rd day, but by the 21st day, by the 13th day, you'll feel some relief. So, Lewis, I forgive you for. And go back 5 years, 15 years, 20 years, do that. I forgive you for that thing don't nobody know about but you. Go ahead and cut those shackles. Because if you can still think about it, it's still in your energy space.
Yeah.
And then the 3rd sentence is, Lewis, I commit to you that. Before you make a commitment to anybody else throughout your day, you make 7 commitments to you. So the first sentence is, I'm proud that you're celebrating yourself first. We are under-celebrated as a society. We look for acknowledgement. They interviewed 100 executives that all made over $250,000 and said, would you like a 5% raise next year, or would you rather be told thank you more often? 100% said, keep your money. I'd rather hear thank you. So we're under-celebrated. But first, celebrate you.
Yeah.
Be the example. When I was on Oprah, when she said, what do you do? I said, I recognize that I'm the example of how the rest of the world is supposed to treat me. And it's my job to give the world the best example of how I like to be treated.
Right.
So celebrate yourself, forgive yourself, cut the shackles, and then commit to yourself before you commit to anyone else. That right there,
Powerful.
that right there will begin to fill your cup up to get to your saucer.
I love that.
I say to my girls all of the time that your real work is to figure out where your power base is and to work on the alignment of your personality, your gifts that you have to give, with the real reason why you're here. That's the number one thing you have to do, is to work on yourself and to fill yourself up and keep your cup full. Keep yourself full. Now, I used to be afraid of that. I used to be afraid, particularly from people who say, oh, she's so full of herself. She's so full of herself. And now I embrace it. I consider it a compliment that I am full of myself. Because you only when you're full, I'm overflowing, my cup runneth over. I have so much to offer and so much to give. And I am not afraid of honoring myself. You know, it's miraculous when you think about it.
Every single day that we wake up, we have been gifted the opportunity of choice. You can choose to be happy or you can choose to be sad. I don't care what your situation is. You should never allow your situation to define who you are as a person. I know I lived out of my car for 2.5 years. And you know the story that I told myself in my head every day, all day long? Why does this person get this? Why does this always keep happening to me? Why do I keep getting this girlfriend, this kind of girlfriend? Why does this happen to me? How come this person got this record deal and I didn't? How come this person, why? Oh, poor pity me. Shut up, Garen Jones. The outside is the physical manifestation of what goes on inside the brain. Things do not just happen. No one just rear ends your car. You don't just become broke. Broke is a mindset. Things don't just happen. Your pocketbook is not just below balance or on zero. You're not just by chance you're just overweight. Things don't just happen. I wasn't just living out of my car for 2.5 years. The outside is the physical manifestation of what goes on inside the brain. Just like you can think yourself sad or mad or broke and all of these things, you can also think yourself happy. I'm telling you, coming from a guy that lived out of his car for 2.5 years, I have stuff that I haven't even posted online. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day month, year. It was so bad that I was numb with emotions, crying myself to sleep in my Jeep. How does a guy with so much passion live in his car for 2.5 years? It was all because of me. I deserved to live in my car. I deserved to be broke. I deserved not to have the opportunities that I should have been getting. And they weren't for me. But I'll tell you what was for me. I woke up every day with an opportunity to choose different. If you want something different, you have to do something different. It's that simple. You want something different in life, you have to do something different.
Whatever it is that you want to do, there's going to be risk in your life. And risk is a necessary component of progress. You can make any pioneering movements in the world of any kind, whether they be the geographical, physical exploration that I've just been talking about, or whether it be, a more cerebral exploration of a scientific field. Or I bet you could ask that question of every speaker here, and I bet that every speaker here has taken substantial risks, whether it be intellectual or otherwise, to achieve what they've done.
I believe people are bullied because of the image that they projected. When I was young, I had a big lack of confidence. And in my school where I used to go, they had the Lincoln teenager. They used to pick on the younger kids. They were sent there because they had problem with their family, raised by a single father or mother, like alcoholic. Some were orphan, and they grew up in a bad environment with a lot of violence. So the only way of communication they had, it was through violence. And they used to apply that to the younger kid in school. And I was victim of that, unfortunately. So the thing is, when I go to do conference, the people why you get bullied sometimes is because the image you project. If you look down, raise your shoulder, and look like a weakling, like in nature, the lion will always go for the animal who's weak, who's injured. The same thing in society. The people will bully the easy target. And when I was young, I had a big problem with confidence. I used to people look down. I didn't have older brother or older cousin to defend myself. I was by myself, and I got picked on because I was an easy target like this. So what martial art taught me is to stand up straight. When I talk to people, I look in the eye. When I shake hand, I'm firm. And the way I start to carry myself, the body language, transformed me. It's not, I stopped being bullying, not because I start beating up people. Right. It's just because the way I was starting to act, the way I was starting to, the projection that I give to people change. And that's what makes it stop.
It's not about being tough.
It's not.
It's about presenting an
it's
image
to
of confidence.
look tough and look confident. Look confident. That's what it's about. Same thing in business. Same thing when you go ask a girl on a date.
Absolutely.
You go, I'm sorry, I don't want to bother you, but please, could you think you could come with me Saturday night to the rest? You know, like it wouldn't work. You know, like they
It's
go.
the same as asking for a raise.
You look
You're
like
right.
a loser. You have to be, confident guy. You know.
I stopped pretending to myself that I was anything other than what I was, and began to direct all my energy into finishing the only work that mattered to me. I was set free because my greatest fear had been realized, and I was still alive, and I still had a daughter whom I adored, and I had an old typewriter and a big idea. And so rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. It is impossible to live without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all.
It took a couple months to realize. I mean, I was 17 at the time. I just finished high school 2 months earlier, and I'm now living in Melbourne. I mean, I was playing catch up really quickly anyway. I was living on my own in a new city where I'd never met anyone, 2-hour flight away from anyone I knew, and I had no money, and I was just trying to find couches to sleep on at that point. Plus, before you're 18, you can't sign up and get electricity bills and stuff like that. So no one would rent a place to me. I didn't have any money. The whole thing was I was just trying to keep my head above water at that point. And then once it settled in, I kind of got settled there, and I was working constantly. Then that's when I thought oh, yeah, I've seen people make the jump from here to America. So my choices are either stay on, be good enough to stay on this show for decades, the way some cast members have, which, you'd have a lovely life in Melbourne, or you screw it up and you get fired, which I obviously didn't want to take that option, or try and make the transition to the American industry, try and move to LA and do pilot season, as I had seen a few cast members do at that point. So that was my goal.
Any fear when you made the flight?
Yes, but it wasn't as scary. Yes, definitely, but it wasn't as scary as that first move to Melbourne. That first move to Melbourne was terrifying because I was just, like I said, I didn't have money at the time. I didn't have any. I didn't know anyone. At least when I moved to LA, when I did that flight to LA, I knew 2 people there already who had already been on Neighbours, and I had my money saved. So if anything went really wrong, I knew I could afford to get in a cab, drive to the airport, and buy a ticket home. And so that's all I needed to know. I was cool, I'm sweet. Whatever happens, if anything goes really wrong, I can always afford to fly home. It'll be fine.
And did it ever, once you got here, did it ever seem like anything was going really wrong, or?
Yeah, there's obviously the ups and downs and the crazy. As anyone who's moved to a new city before, I'm sure they've had crazy experiences. So I had all that for sure. But no, it was fine. It would have had to take a lot to make me fly home. I was I will not be a failure. I came here and I'm not going home until I've made it in this business. So
a lot of people come to me and they say, well, I want to be an entrepreneur. And I go, oh, that's great. What's your idea? And they go, well, I don't have one yet. And I say, well, I think you should go get a job as a busboy or something until you find something you're really passionate about, because it's a lot of work. And I'm convinced that about half of what separates the successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful ones is pure perseverance. It is so hard. You pour so much of your life into this thing, and there are such rough moments in time that most people give up. I don't blame them. I mean, it's really tough, and it consumes your life. I mean, if you've got a family and you're in the early days of a company, I can't imagine how one could do it. I'm sure it's been done, but it's rough. I mean, because it's pretty much an 18-hour-a-day job, 7 days a week for a while. So unless you have a lot of passion about this, you're going to not survive. You're going to give it up. So you got to have an idea or a problem or a wrong that you want to right that you're passionate about. Otherwise, you're not going to have the perseverance to stick it through. And I think that's half the battle right there. It's hard to remember how bad it was, in early 80s, with IBM taking over the world with the PC, with DOS out there. It was far worse than the Apple II. And they tried to copy the Apple II, and they'd done a pretty bad job, and you needed to know a lot. And so things were kind of slipping backwards. And Macintosh was, you saw the 1984 commercial. I hope you have that in your archives. You know, Macintosh was basically this this relatively small company, you know, in Cupertino, California, taking on the Goliath, IBM, and saying, wait a minute, your way is wrong. This is not the way we want computers to go. This is not the legacy we want to leave. This is not what we want our kids to be learning. This is wrong, and we are going to show you the right way to do it. And here it is. It's called Macintosh, and this is so much better that it's going to beat you. And we are going to do it. And that's what Apple stood for.
Hey, work to your potential, not your quota. If you want to stay really motivated, if you want to answer the question to why people that have already made it keep pushing, it is because they don't operate on quotas, they operate off potential. They're driven to reach their potential. This is also tied to their ethical obligation. They know what they're capable of. Nobody can tell you what you're capable of. You're the only one that knows, okay? So work to your potential, not your quota. Quotas are numbers. Who made them up? Some guy says, okay, your quota is blah, blah, okay? Based on what? How did he come up with that quota? He only picked that quota, that number, because he thinks it's significant or compared to other people maybe in your industry. Look, don't operate on quotas. You want them. Clearly you want them, but you want to be driven to reach your potential, not just some number, some mechanics. Hey, my potential, I know. Nobody else knows it. I know what it is. You know yours. Work to your potential, not just a quota, and I promise you, you will be on fire day and night.
Your values and your goals should be aligned. They should not be adversarial. They shouldn't be counter to each other. And if you think about what your goals are, your goals should be set up in a way that they support your values and vice versa. That's just the way it is. So I'm not sure where this is going to be an issue. If you're setting up goals that are contrary to your values, you got some issues. Now, I guess if you had the goal of winning the blue belt jiu-jitsu championships, and in order to win, you cheated, like you claimed someone was reaping your leg and you said, oh, you tap and you get the guy to qualified and you win. That could be an example, right?
Yeah.
Now, do I support that? No. You know, that's wrong. You go win against the values of martial arts to do that. So you didn't win anything and you didn't achieve your goal because you weren't actually the best.
Right.
So I say no on that one. Another one, let's say you wanted to make a certain level of profit at your company. So you cheated a little bit on the quality of the manufacturing and you sold items that weren't quite reliable. Do I support that? No, right? And why? Let me tell you why. Because your goal is not even aligned with your goal itself. Because when you start making substandard manufactured items, what's going to happen in the long run? People are going to say, hey, we don't like these. Yeah. We're not going to buy them anymore. So you didn't win. You might have won in the short term, but you didn't win. And again, you're going against your value. You should have values that you don't want to, take profit over making good product. And again, in the long run, that value is going to cost you, right? People aren't going to want to buy your product anymore.
It's only one way to get rich, and that's quick. That's not a get-rich-quick scheme, though. Because the world's too expensive to get rich slowly. But what I mean by getting rich quick is that there are certain things you have to know on the inner game of wealth, how you manage your emotional state, your beliefs, your standards, your focus. Then in the outer game, entrepreneurship, sales, marketing, how to develop multiple streams of income. It takes time. That's where the hard work, because a lot of hard work goes into getting this lined up and that lined up. But once you have it all lined up and you've done the work, then you can make money very, very quickly. So it's not a scheme, but you got to get rich quick and you have to put the work in. I say, if you don't want to work hard, good luck. I mean, I don't know any rich people that don't work really, really hard. That's the bottom line. So hard work and knowing stuff, skills.
There's no quick fix, easy
fix.
It's
not, again, when you get rich, it happens quickly, but there's a lot of work that goes up to that point before the money starts pouring in. That's the distinction that I think a lot of people who are not wealthy, they don't get that. They think that you accumulate money just a little bit at a time. It doesn't work that way. You work, don't get the result, and bam, one last piece of the puzzle clicks in, whether it's not knowing how to close, and it all happens quickly.
I spoke at an education summit for Microsoft. I also spoke at an education summit for Apple. At the education summit for Microsoft, I would say that 70% of the executives spent about 70% of their presentations talking about how to beat Apple. At the Apple Education Summit, 100% of the executives spent 100% of their presentations talking about how to help teachers teach and how to help students learn. One is playing this way, and one is playing that way. One is playing finite, and the other one is playing infinite. Guess which one gets frustrated? So at the end of my talk at Microsoft, they gave me a gift. They gave me the new Zune when it was a thing. And let me tell you, this thing was spectacular. It was the most elegant piece of technology I'd ever used. The user interface was incredible. The design was spectacular. I absolutely loved it. It was easy to use, and it was bright and gorgeous and fantastic. It didn't work on iTunes, which is a different problem, so I couldn't use it, but it was amazing. And elegant. My God, it was elegant. So I'm sitting in the back of a taxi with a very senior Apple executive, sort of employee number 12 kind of guy. And, you know, I like to stir pots. So I turned to him, I said, you know, Microsoft gave me their new Zune, and it is so much better than your iPod Touch. And he turned to me and he said, I have no doubt. Conversation over. Because the infinite player understands sometimes you're ahead and sometimes you're behind. Sometimes your product is better and sometimes it's worse. The goal isn't to be the best every day. The goal isn't to outdo your competition every day. That's a finite construction. If I had said to Microsoft, I've got the new iPod Touch and it's so much better than your Zune, they would have said, can we see it? What does it do? React, 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 react. Finite players play to beat the people around them. Infinite players play to be better than themselves. To wake up every single day and say, how can we make our company a better version of itself today than it was yesterday? How can we create a product this week that's better than the product we created last week? We also have to play the infinite game. It's not about being ranked number one. It's not about having more followers on Twitter than your friends. It's not about outdoing anyone. It's about how to outdo yourself. It's not about selling more books or getting more TED views than somebody else. It's about how to make sure that the work that you're producing is better than the work you produced before. You are your competition. And that is what ensures you stay in the game the longest. And that is what ensures you find joy. Because the joy comes not from comparison, but from advancement.
If you think you're going to be a lot happier if you've got 2x instead of x, you're probably making a mistake. I mean, you ought to find something you like that works with that, and you'll get in trouble if you think that making 10x or 20x is the answer to everything in life, because then you will do things like borrow money when you shouldn't, or maybe cut corners on things that your employer wants you to cut corners on, or it just doesn't make any sense. You won't like it when you look back on it. 3 things in hiring people: look for integrity, intelligence, and energy. And he said if the person didn't have the first 2, that the latter 2 would kill them. Because if they don't have integrity, you want them dumb and lazy. You don't want them smart and energetic.
All of those liabilities that they talked about started turning into assets. When they did Conan the Barbarian, the director came to me and he said, if we wouldn't have you, we would have had to build one. And on Terminator, the director said, I couldn't imagine to have anyone play Terminator that wouldn't have an accent and they wouldn't have your body. I cannot imagine the line, I'll be back, with a normal American accent. It works so perfectly that you have this German accent. So all of those things that they say the liabilities became an asset. As moment went on, it grew and grew, and I went from one movie to the next, started making more and more money, and then I ended up being the highest paid actor with $30 million on Terminator 3.
I directed like music videos before for the Foo Fighters, and it's easy. I honestly believe that if you're focused and passionate and driven, you can achieve anything you want to achieve in life. Because I honestly believe that, because you'll figure it out. You know what I mean? So I never took lessons to play the drums. I just figured it out. And I never took lessons to play guitar. I took maybe a few, but I just listened to Beatles records, you know? And so, but I would listen to it. I would listen and practice by myself in my bedroom obsessively. And so throughout life, I've always kind of figured that that's just how you do stuff. Like if you have a natural inclination and a real like drive to do something, that you can figure it out.
Well, now that we can see how short life really can be, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? That's a trigger. That's the biggest trigger that I have ever experienced. What are you going to do the rest of your life? And what I had to do is I had to start taking some of my own advice. I have been telling people, I had written about it for a very long time, that if you're doing something that you're not totally committed to, if you're doing something that you're not totally passionate about, you're compromising yourself every day.
It's very easy to mistake an impulse that comes to you for some deeper answer that comes out of the stillness. And so in any decision-making process, you have basically two factors. Well, most people only you have the information that's available to you, and so make sure that you have the information, all the facts that you need. Sometimes, before making a decision, you may have a number of facts, and sometimes these facts may not be sufficient. So then you go within and see what questions you can ask in order to elicit more facts or information from whoever is capable of giving to you that information. I'm talking in very general terms, whether you're in business or wherever you are, or some personal decision that you need to arrive at. On one level, facts need to be looked at. What is the situation? And sometimes the facts are not clear enough, or there are not enough facts, and you become still and see what questions you can ask. Somebody may be able to supply more detailed facts, but in order to ask the right question, you already need a moment of stillness. So you may not immediately get an answer through stillness. The first step, as you become alert and still, is another question. A very important thing in decision-making process is not to come up with a decision, but to ask the right question that can elicit what you need in order to arrive at a decision. And in order to ask the right question, there needs to be that alert stillness for a moment, and in that alert stillness, you kind of listen within, and then a question comes. This is, I often, when they call me and say, we've had this or that offer, somebody wants you to do this, somebody wants you to do that interview, somebody wants to do that. And very often, I don't immediately say yes or no. I usually come up with a few questions. What, in addition to the information that they gave me, well, what about that and that and that? And then say, oh, okay, I'll get back to you, I'll find out. And then they call again, then I know a bit more. And sometimes, on the basis of the factual information, you already know whether you want to do it or not. You more easily know that you don't want to do it just by looking at the facts.
Stay in front of the competition, because there's two ways in this industry. You move with it, or it moves you. And I've seen so many sad stories across the decade where chefs have just got lazy, given up, and lost that hunger to be competitive, because it's the best job in the world. That's not really a job, it's a passion. Because when you're rubbing shoulders, and here we are now, 10 years later, and I've got a restaurant next door to Jamie Oliver's, and we're both literally 2 meters apart. Phenomenal chef, and we keep each other on our toes. So that's exciting for me, and that's been the one key issue across the 10 years of filming Kitchen Nightmares. Never, ever, ever give up.
My advice would be the same for any kind of entrepreneur, and that is make sure that you are focused on something you're passionate about. So if you look at the early internet companies, they were started and focused on doing something that they thought was very interesting long before the internet was fashionable in any way. We are currently an underdog once again. We've been in business for 6 years, and there was exactly 1 year where we were not the underdog, and that was 1999. I like the underdog years because it makes, I liked it when all the people we hired, their parents told them they were crazy. Like that was kind of the good era. Fortunately, it's back. In 1999, all the parents were like, giving their brothers and sisters high fives. My son is working at Amazon.com. So that's a very, you can't follow the fashion when you're trying to do a startup company, or I think really anything in life. But you have to, as an entrepreneur, if you're gonna build a company, pick something you think is interesting that has the intersection of genuinely creating real customer value, and then just stay right there and let the wave catch you.
You can spend your whole life imagining ghosts, worrying about the pathway to the future, but all there will ever be is what's happening here, and the decisions we make in this moment, which are based in either love or fear. So many of us choose our path out of fear disguised as practicality. What we really want seems impossibly out of reach and ridiculous to expect, so we never dare to ask the universe for it. I'm saying I'm the proof that you can ask the universe for it. Please. And if it doesn't happen for you right away, it's only because the universe is so busy fulfilling my order. My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
So many people put me down and say, Nick, you look too weird and no one's really offended. You can't do this and you can't do that. And I couldn't change anything. It's not like just fixing my hair one day and everything's fine. It's not like, just whatever. I couldn't change my circumstance. I couldn't just one day wake up and say, hey, give me arms and legs. I need arms and legs. You know what I mean? Like, I went to a bodybuilder, and said, can you make me some arms and legs? No joking. Bodybuilder, you get it? Right? So here's the thing, I go up to people, can you give me a hand? Just joking. But it was so hard because people put me down. And I started believing that I was not good enough. I started believing that I was a failure. That I'll never ever be somebody who people would like or people would accept. And it was so hard, man. I thought to myself, I can't go on the soccer field like everybody else, and I can't ride my bike, and I can't skateboard, and all these sort of things. And I started getting depressed. I thought, what kind of purpose do I have to live? I mean, are you just here to live to die? I mean, is there not a purpose for me? Is there not a purpose in life? And I had questions and no answers. And I asked my mom and dad, why did this happen? I asked doctors, why did this happen? They don't know. There are some things in life that are out of your control that you can't change and you got to live with. The choice that we have, though, is either to give up or keep on going. I want to ask you, what are you going to believe? Are you going to believe in yourself? Are you going to believe everybody else's judgment on you? Are you going to believe people when they say that you're a failure? Well, no one really likes you. No one really cares about you. And it's not really to say that, hey, you need someone to come up and say, hey, really, I like you, I care about you. No, it's not that, but it's the fact that people put you down. People don't even look you in the eye. People ask you how you are, and you say fine, but you're not fine, and they'll never know that.
I've never actually thought I was, starting a company as such. I just saw situations as I traveled in life where I felt I could improve on the way things were being done by other people. So, one of my favorite phrases is "screw it, let's do it," and I've used that phrase a lot of times. And we just love going in and trying to shake up industries and doing it better than it's been done before.
You cuss all the time. Why?
Well, I hate to say it, the best way for me to get how I feel across, I can't sit here and say, you know what, yeah, I went through Hell Week and man, it was really hard. No, that takes your damn soul, rips it inside out, and then they say, now we're going to start. It allows me to express where I was at a point of my life. If I don't give you all of me, why the hell am I here? Why? How will you learn from me? People take so much offense to me. You will never learn from people if we always tap dance around the truth.
Oh God, I love that.
We tap dance around the truth by finding the right words so I don't hurt you because you have thin skin. No, tighten up, people. It's okay. Trust me, it's okay. You might be called nigger one day. It's okay. You might be called some Jewish word or some faggot or gay word. It's okay. Let them call you that. What are you going to do now? They don't own your life. How are you going to control that now? How are you going to flip it upside down and say, Roger that, now I'm going to harness this and you'll read about me years from now? How? That's the question. How are you going to do that? Thicken your skin. Become more of a human being. Don't be afraid of the reflection in the mirror because that's all you can be afraid of. Once you overcome the reflection in the mirror, you've done it.
Ideas are worth nothing. I mean, ideas are really, they're not a dime a dozen. They're just nothing. All the good founders I know, even the bad founders, can come up with ideas all day long. It doesn't mean anything. You have to be able to execute. And one of the sort of maxims that I was told once was, your success will be measured in the number of uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have. So I often get asked if an entrepreneur should, say, start a business based on one of their passions, or if they should find the most attractive market opportunity and build a business out of that, whether they like it or not. I don't think it's either or. I think you need both. I would say look at your own credit card statement. Identify where you spend an unusual percentage of your income. Where are you price insensitive? Then how old are you? What gender are you? Where do you live? And design a product that has all of those things intersecting.
I tend to be incredibly modest in terms of describing your talents, and you always seem to belittle your abilities to a certain extent when clearly there's a reason why everything you do has been working out. I was reading about how you said that to a certain extent that comes from your punk rock roots.
Yep, there's no other choice. In those days, there was no idea of this makes money. There's no idea of like, this is my future. It was like a week at a time. We have 5 shows. We're gonna get to Sunday. Whew. And even those days were like fraught with turbulence. And so I never really saw a future. None of us did. And some of us, didn't make it. Some of them are dead. And some of them are just kind of trying to recreate their past. And so I realized that I have to be very hardworking because I don't have kind of the ease of talent. And I come from that. And I think in a lot of ways it served me very well in that I am as kind of hardworking as I've ever been, completely without confidence. I have none. I don't want any, because I think you turn your back on the thing and that's when you get gored, is when you think, I got this. I never think I got this. I think, oh man, don't screw this up. And I go at everything, like including you and I sitting here right now. I'm trying to be fully engaged. And that intensity, I think, has served me quite well, but it comes from punk rock, absolutely. Last boss I ever had was my boss at Haagen-Dazs, my ice cream job. And to this day, he still comes to my shows. And whenever I see Steve, who got me my first apartment, I was living in my car, he believed in me. Whenever I see him, I get all weepy. I always tell him, it's good to see you, sir. Henry, you can call me Steve. I can't do that, sir. Because he trusted me with his money. And I said, let me run your store. I know how to do this. I can do this. He's like, well, if you screw up, you're out of here. I said, I won't screw up. And I ran his store. And so, but it was anger that said, I'll be here all damn week. I'll get this whole thing right. I fired his staff and rehired a bunch of people who can really work. And it was out of anger. Like, I'll be back in 4 hours to run this $3.75 an hour job into the ground. And then I joined Black Flag, and I thought I was a hardworking person. Then you meet the guys in Black Flag who are so driven. You'd see Greg Ginn work 23-hour days. Like, Greg, you're still on the phone. I know. Greg, when did you eat? I don't know. Greg, when was the last time you showered? Do we have a shower? Like the guy, we were not going to be stopped. And I kind of go at that intensity, like kind of anything I do. Like, you're a very calm, good-looking young man. Look at me, I'm a spaz sitting next to you. Like, I'm doing an interview with you. I can't help it.
Focused.
I'm sweating, man. And so, but I'm like this going to the airport, like 10 miles out. And so, it's anger that has informed kind of my life, and unflatteringly, a sense of vengeance. Every damn person who said I wouldn't be anything, I'm crushing them every day. Everybody I had to endure in any band I was in, every day, into a powder. Yeah. Thank you. And I wish them no ill. I just wish to shine brighter, and if it burns my body to a crisp, I'm happy to go right now.
There are some mountains that can be climbed by people like you and me. We got to get a little bit better condition, but I mean, it's not like the mountain climber mountains that would be way beyond our skill level. But some of these mountains that can be climbed by you and me, it takes a day to get to the top, and then you camp up there and you come down the next day. And on many of these places in Switzerland where you could do that, about halfway up the mountain is what they call the halfway house, halfway up the mountain. So a group of people starts off with a guide in the morning, and about noon, you're kind of tired, and you've been walking now for 4 or 5 hours, and you're coming up to the halfway house, and it's just it's a wonderful sight. Because as soon as you enter in the halfway house, you can smell the food, and they're getting ready for a good lunch, and you sit down, there's a fire in the fireplace, and there's nice soft chairs, and you can just rest your body and refresh your body. And so the people go into the halfway house, and they eat and laugh and enjoy and just really just kind of take in that wonderful, refreshing atmosphere. About an hour and a half after being in the halfway house, the guide gets up and says, well, gang, it's time to put on your gear. We got to hike. We got to get on up to the top. This is a fact. About half the people decide not to go on up to the top. They're sitting around the table, and they're just saying, you know what, go on up. You're going to be coming by here tomorrow. You're going to be having lunch here again tomorrow. We're just going to hang here. And so the people that want to get to the top, they put their stuff on, and they kind of leave. And the rest of the people sit behind. They eat a little bit more food, get around the piano, sing some songs, get around the fireplace, enjoy the fire, warm themselves by the fire. And play games all afternoon, kind of enjoy themselves. But about 4:30, 4:45 in the afternoon, without anybody saying a word, the people who stayed in the halfway house, they slowly go over to where the window is, the big window, and they start looking outside, and they start looking up at the top of that mountain. And as they look at the top of that mountain, they see their friends. Their friends are now getting the tents out, and they're getting ready to prepare for the night, and it becomes very quiet, very somber. Because everybody in the halfway house realizes the mistake they've made. They've sold their mission for a little bit of comfort for a few hours. Next morning, down come their friends, and by noon, they come into the halfway house. And when they come in the halfway, they are laughing, they're high-fiving, they're talking about what they've seen, where they've been, experiences, the fact that it was almost impossible to get up there. In fact, they had to help each other get up there, and how they joined teams and held hands, and they just tell them all these stories and talk about the pictures they've taken, and they got the group picture up there with the flag at the top, and the people who remain behind, they don't say much. They just eat their lunch and then follow the rest of them down to the bottom of the hill where their friends are waiting for them. And those who paid the price and went to the top, who understood now is the time to reach the mission, they hug and tell stories and celebrate. And the others, they just kind of slip off and get in their car and go home, because they realize they're never going to be what they wanted to be. They're never going to see what they wanted to see. They're never going to do what they wanted to do, because they failed to realize when they're at the halfway house, now's the time to rest, and they go on.
You have to realize that whatever your day is, whatever you're doing, whatever your job is, whatever people think of you or project you to be, none of it matters, really, until you look around and see people who are in need. And I think probably the best benefit of my job is to help, to make people smile, who otherwise wouldn't or couldn't have a smile on their face. So, yeah, that's my deal.
If somebody said to you, you'll have or you'll be as successful as you are now, what would you had said back then?
I believe you. That's what I would have said. Because I did believe.
Yes.
I believed in it. I had very few people who told me that. I had a small group of people that would tell me something like that. Other than that, it was just me telling myself.
Yep.
So if someone came up to me and told me that all the way back then, I'd say you're damn right.
One of the things that's really interesting about the Old Testament is that, and the Jews in the Old Testament, is that they don't take the path of Cain. Every time they're walloped by God, which is like fairly frequently, they say, we must have done something wrong and we have to set ourselves right. And that's an unbelievably heroic attitude, because that's the alternative to cursing fate. It's like you take the responsibility for failure onto yourself. And you think, well, maybe if I just had my act together a little bit more, if I took advantage of every opportunity that was put in front of me, if I wasn't resentful and bitter, then I could have done something that would have tilted the situation in a different direction. And like, that's almost inevitably true. Dostoevsky, I think, said something like, every man is responsible for everything that happens to him and everything that happens to everyone else. And that's, you know, it's a crazy statement, right? It's a crazy statement. And he was a pretty extreme person in many, many ways. But there's a level at which that's metaphysically true, you know, because what happens is that it's failure to act often that's the most catastrophic. You know, I mean, it's to not do the right thing when the situation presents itself, and it's very specific. You know, you're constantly in situations where you could do the right thing if you were willing to take a risk that's actually of relatively moderate size. And you know that you could take the risk, and you know that you should take the risk, and you don't. And that happens to people all the time. And then what happens is the thing that they didn't oppose grows a little bit, and they shrink a little bit. And that starts a loop, hey?
Enough. Like, living by somebody else's rules is a humongous mistake. I've just literally sat down with 5 people under the age of 27, and it's so refreshing. It is so refreshing. If you have not jumped on the bandwagon of doing exactly what the you want to do, which is skiing for the next 3 years, or working at a job that's not what your parents want or what society wants, this video is just called Enough. Enough. Make this little 1-2 minute video, depends on when I finish, the piece of content that gets you to stand up and take life by its throat. Do something. Stop being scared. Stop letting the way you were raised, the fear as an offense, take that away. Let me be the person. I'll take the blame. I loved that some of my employees are like, my parents don't love what you're saying. Good, parents, because if you are playing defense and if you are living a life where your kids' lives are the way you're being fulfilled, you're a loser, parents. And so enough parents imposing their way. You want your kids to be happy on your terms. Enough the kid that's sitting right now at a desk and saw this in a feed and you hate your job. Enough. Stand up, get the out of here, and do you. Live your life. You got one life. Do something about it.
Able to come through on your word, it allows the guys that you're leading, male or female, to be able to say, okay, we can follow this person because he won't let us down. You know, for me as the leader of our franchise and the leader of my household and the leader of so many, you know, different things, I think it's the confidence, but it's also you practicing what you preach. I'm not a guy who just talks about it. I actually go out and do it as well, from a basketball perspective or from a leadership perspective with my kids and my foundation. You know, we have a promise initiative where they promise me that they will go to school, they will listen to their teachers, they'll be great to their classmates, and I promise them that I will continue to be a great role model, a father figure for them, and not let those guys down. So I take that responsibility, and I don't just talk about it, I actually do it as well. So when you're able to come through on your word, it allows the guys that you're leading, male or female, to be able to say, okay, we can follow this person because he won't let us down. No matter if it's going good or bad. You know, every day is not a bed of roses. We understand that, and you have to be able to handle adversity as well.
There is an advantage to being what I like to call now hardcore. Hardcore. I don't know quite how to describe it. It's a combination of tenacious and dedicated and passionate and committed, something like that. Hardcore. I learned about being hardcore from math concentrators at Harvard. I'm not going to ask whether we have any math concentrators here, but I would say that's where I got kind of my lesson. I mean, people could just go crazy, focused. And it wasn't just that people were genius, but working and working and working and working. You know, I'd sit in my room working on a problem set, and after 3 hours, I'm a little ADD, I just couldn't take it. The most hardcore people could just power through anything. And the advantage of being that tenacious and dedicated and committed, I claim, it helped us at Microsoft. It was fundamental at Microsoft, but I learned it here at Harvard.
How much of your training is dedicated to visualization?
Fighting it, there is a big science behind it. I believe I'm champion, not because I'm the strongest guy, not because also I'm the more skilled guy. I'm very skilled, I'm very strong, I'm very athletic, I'm fast, but I think the reason why I'm champion is my mind. The way I'm very good to using my skills to neutralize my opponent's skill and make the fight turning to putting the odds on my side. I think that's a key.